All right, when I decide I want to get a new truck, I can't tell you how many hours of my time I have wasted scrolling Facebook Marketplace, going to look at trucks that I think fit what I'm looking for, and they end up just being absolute junk. They need all sorts of modifications. They need all sorts of things fixed, and it's not what you thought it was going to be. And that's why my friend at Bunch's Diesel Performance has started a service for you guys who are looking for a new rig. Maybe it's your dream truck. Maybe it's a truck that you need to perform a specific job within your business. Jonah will source these trucks for you. You tell him what you want. You tell him your parameters. He has access to inventory that you can't see, and he's going to work with you to find the right truck for you. All right? It doesn't matter where you live. He can ship these things to you. He can have them sent to his shop if you want modifications done. He's going to work with you through the entire process. I know Jonah personally. We've hunted together. We've trained together. We've known each other for years, and I stand behind him and his company, and I can tell you that he operates with integrity and with honor throughout the entire process, which I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you've dealt with vehicles for long, you know that that's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. So check them out. Bunch's Diesel Performance. We're going to attach a link to his website where you can find his contact information in the description of this episode. Sweet. I'm here to tell you today about BPN. That's Bear Performance Nutrition. Bear Performance Nutrition is a long-term partner with us here at 3F7 Project, which means we've used their products for a long, long time. We've tested them. We've ran them through the mill here with the things that we do, and they work, flat out work. BPN products are NSF certified, which means they are held accountable by a third party to check the standards of the supplements that they put out. That's really important, and you don't see that in a lot of other supplement brands, all right? It's a huge step toward accountability. This particular product right here from BPN is one of my most used products. This is G1M Sport, all right? We'll attach a link for the ready-to-drink option in the show notes of this episode. But this is essentially an endurance formula. It's got electrolytes and carbohydrates to keep you fueled for the long run, the long ride, the long swim, or the long day at work. It tastes good. It sits well with your stomach. And across the board, it is a great source of fuel that you're getting from your hydration. This is super critical for endurance athletes, this type of supplement, and G1M Sport is the best one that I've ever used. So if you guys need protein, if you guys need vitamins, if you guys need some endurance formula, check out bearperformancenutrition.com. You won't be disappointed. All right, Wendi Irlbeck. Did I say that right?
Correct.
Outstanding. Got it right. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. You've flown halfway across the country to share what you're passionate about, and that's commendable. I'm super pumped about this conversation because I think you're the expert, like in the nutrition space, just based off of the content that I see you post. You are posting really educational stuff. It's inspiring, it's entertaining, it's fun to watch, and I can just tell you love what you do. And you have all of the certifications and all of the schooling and all of the stuff to back up your passion to make you the expert in this field. And I think nutrition is it's one of the most important things for us as human beings. And it's becoming less and less intuitive for humans. And we're going to get into that as part of our conversation. But this all also fits into the conversation around our faith. Because really, there is a theology that revolves around the body, if you want to mine that out of the scriptures. You know, we really don't have the option to just allow ourselves to walk around and look like and act like a fat turd. Would you agree? Like, we don't have that. That's not an option for us. Like, we are called to care for this vessel that is the vessel of the Holy Spirit for so many different reasons. So we can be used, so we can image Christ to those around us. It's not for vanity. It's because we want to be pleasing to the Lord. We want to care for what He's given us. He's created us in His likeness and image. We're unique in all of creation. And so, man, let's take some pride in that, and let's learn how to take care of ourselves. And nutrition is a huge, huge part of that. So that's why I'm excited about this conversation. Anyways, you were talking earlier, just spin off of what you were talking about right back there before we started recording. You were talking about sleep is king, nutrition is queen, and you were talking about how many excuses you hear about people not being able to get good sleep. And my wife and I just got flip phones yesterday.
Oh, bless. Great.
Yeah, so we're making that transition, and that's a big part of what you were talking about, like why you're not getting enough sleep. It's not a time thing.
Correct. First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm incredibly passionate, and part of the challenges that I see and why people are, to quote you, fat turds, is because they're allowing the convenience is killing us. We have access to order food from our phone. So the fact that you downgraded to a flip phone, I think that's going to upgrade your life immensely, because it's going to limit distractions and the convenience. And so I think for a lot of people, the average screen time is between 5 and 8 hours a day. And so if you're getting less than 6 hours, you're also eating out. I mean, it just comes down to the fundamentals and the basics. And we are called to honor our body. We're called to be a good steward of our vessel. And garbage in equals garbage out. And so everything that we consume, not only from a food and nutrition standpoint, but what we listen to, what we read, what we surround ourselves with, bad company corrupts good character. I think that a lot of people, misery loves company. They get into these groups and they just complain about how difficult their life is. And so I am obviously not a mother. I've been lit up, online because of this, but I've worked with families. I've helped them overcome barriers and create a sustainable lifestyle that fosters better sleep, better nutrition, better stress management, and it requires them to make changes.
So with your clients, so you are making sure that coaching them, at least giving them tools to get good sleep, goes hand in hand with good nutrition.
Absolutely. So part of it too is when people eat late at night too, the snacking, which is very detrimental to your sleep, your REM sleep, deep sleep. And so people are eating later, they're getting poor quality of sleep. It decreases their testosterone levels. Their appetite is non-existent in the morning. And so they go for a Celsius or an energy drink, which I absolutely hate those. Children should not be drinking those either. But a lot of people have these really bad habits, and it leads to a poor quality life. And it always starts with our morning routine. And so if you want to get good sleep, it actually starts with the first thing that you do in the morning. And so scripture before screens. And so that means scripture in the morning and setting the tone for the day, because I truly believe that a lot of people, they're exhausted, but they haven't actually exhausted themselves well enough to actually get a good night's sleep.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's very nuanced, but if we go back to the fundamentals of proper sleep, obviously dark room, limit caffeine, avoid spicy things, high fat foods, don't have I love steak, excellent source of protein, but you shouldn't be having a steak dinner at 9:00 at night and then being confused on why you're not sleeping well. You really should cut off your meals around 7 p.m.
And that's because your digestive system is having to work so hard to process that?
Yes. So the autonomic nervous system, we have the sympathetic, parasympathetic, right? You want to be in that rest and digest stage. And so a small amount of Greek yogurt and berries would actually be a really good thing to have 2 hours before. And so with families that I work with, it's, hey, let's look at the full picture. What are y'all doing throughout the day? Obviously sports, work with a lot of athletes. So they have conditioning, they have things in the evening games. Obviously their kid is going to be wired if they get done at 9 p.m., but they shouldn't be having energy drinks in the evening because there's also a 6-hour half-life. So that caffeine is still in your system when you're trying to go to sleep. And so that's why I talk about, really looking at the habits throughout the day, limiting, you shouldn't have caffeine after 1 p.m. You really should try and move most of your meals, front load your calories. It'll be more beneficial for you, for your kids, you'll sleep better. But really that evening routine to try and wind down, you really want to try and limit the blue light exposure from our phones, from screens. And then obviously, shouldn't be drinking caffeine, which you'd be surprised, Chad, how many people come for me and they're like, well, I need the data as to why we shouldn't be drinking caffeine at night. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? It's crazy. But people want to defend a lot of habits because it's a lot easier to be a victim. And I know that doesn't sound empathetic, but I just am a firm believer that there are solutions out there. And that's why I love helping people. I love asking them, where do you want to be? Okay, is your current trajectory, is that going to get you to where you want to be? And they often say, well, no. Okay, well, change requires change. Here's what we can do. We can, change this routine. Maybe you're not going to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, but maybe there are a few nights that you can actually increase your sleep so that it offsets the sleep debt.
Yeah. And that's a big goal of mine for this conversation is to kind of expose some of the excuses that are being made and to show that there are ways there are action steps that you can take to change things. One of the big things is we know nutrition and what we're eating these days is affecting human fertility.
Yes.
And hormone levels. Mm-hmm. And, I see it on my page all the time. The big excuse is, well, everything that they give us to eat is full of chemicals and this is why I have to take this medicine. This is why I have to get on testosterone replacement therapy. This is why, we're having trouble with fertility. It's because everything they give us to eat is full of plastic or, full of antibiotics or hormones or what. It's like, dude, you understand. You're just casting the blame off on whoever they is. So we'll get into all that in a little bit. I want to really kind of just tear that crap down and say, hey, and this is true across the board, the only person who believes your excuse is you. People looking from the outside, at least me looking from the outside, when I see your excuse, I don't, it's it's only real to you.
Correct. Yes.
There is a better way.
I wanted to point to scripture. So I'm a dietitian, right? And I didn't grow up believing in Christ. I actually was an atheist for most of my life, and I found Jesus later on. But one of the scriptures that really resonates with me is just the Philippians 3:19. Their destiny is destruction, their God is their stomach, glory is in their shame, and their mind is set on earthly things. And so going back to not only that, but James, it talks about how we are so prideful. And I think for a lot of us, gluttony is a sin that's not talked enough about. And so as a dietitian, I think that drawing in the church's awareness too, that, hey, if we really want people to be healthy, we want them to have great fertility, we want them to thrive as families, why aren't we offering water, fruit, string cheese, hard-boiled eggs, figs, pomegranate, things that are in the Bible? And I have drawn those dots to connect them I met a pastor on one of my flights a month ago when I was speaking at a conference, and, he agreed with me and he said, yeah, it's a real problem. And I said, why is gluttony not talked enough about? Because it actually would solve a lot of our problems, right? Not treating your body like a waste can, you would be closer to Jesus because you wouldn't be exhausted. You'd have more energy and time to read your Bible, to go out and make disciples. You would be a better father, a better mother, because you'd be more patient, because when you eat garbage, you have a very low tolerance to your kids screaming, right?
That affects your mood.
Yeah, your mood, your focus, your concentration, testosterone levels, fertility. It all goes back to what we eat. And that's why I love the Bible, because yes, I have all these accolades and you've achieved a lot too, but God already gave us the guide on what we need to do. And we have this knowledge, and it's very frustrating to me, the excuses that everybody has when we can be successful. Control your controllables. That's something that I preach all of the time. And we can't control everything, but God didn't tell you to fill your body with a bunch of fried food and drink energy drinks and then walk around complaining. How does that glorify or edify him? And then someone would say, oh, well, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in Jesus. Well, that's a great opportunity to meet them where they're at. I think for me in my walk with the Lord is that part of me becoming a dietitian, Chad, was that God had to humble me because I was a very prideful woman. And it's a very long story, but it's part of my testimony. And I, rejected the Lord for most of my life because I grew up without a mother. My dad, incredible man, single father. My mother was unwell. I just believed that if there was a God, he didn't have time for me or my family because of what we were going through. And so part of that is my dad taught us to not be a victim, and we can't control things, but we can control how hard we work, our effort, obviously nutrition. I fell in love with it when I was around 12 years old. I used fitness as an outlet to avoid, dealing with the pain and trauma of what was happening with my family. And I felt good when I would run laps around the house, you do chores. And then when I ate specific foods, I also felt a boost in my mood. And so part of me and my mindset is like, I know what it's like to eat poorly and to feel poorly. And then I know what it's like to thrive. And part of that is, a lot of us make our bodies gods. Like we use fitness, we use insert vice, right, to distract from the pain. And so I can't, continue the conversation without giving God all the glory, because when I decided to become a sports dietitian and I left my full-time career in corporate wellness, I went back to school, earned my master's, and was studying for the exam, was getting excellent scores on the practice exams. My professors were like, you're going to pass it. I failed the test 3 times. I had severe performance anxiety. I felt like every single time I walked into that testing center, I just felt like I blacked out, and I was very prepared. And so part of my walk with Christ is that I realized that I had to surrender that to him, and that pride, like everything that I had done in the past, like it had to be him. And I decided that, okay, if you really want me to be a dietitian, Lord, I'm just going to stop studying. I'm going to surrender it to you. And I'm going to trust that if we take it one more time, that if it's your will that I become a dietitian, fantastic. If not, we'll assess from there. And so I walked into that testing center and just took it one question at a time. And I just felt the enemy attacking me left and right, like, you're going to fail, you're stupid, all of those things that a lot of people experience on a day-to-day basis, which is also why they make poor decisions, because they don't believe that they're worth it, because their worth is found in what they do, not what he has done for us. And so I passed the test. I walked out. I couldn't believe it. I fell to my knees and I praised God. But before that happened, I had a encounter with the Lord. And I've talked about this and I've shared it with my family years later. But when I was preparing for that exam and I was in the deep darkness of just poor self-worth, really wasn't trusting God. Like I said, I found him later in life, but I wasn't following him. I wasn't actively reading my Bible. And it was in 2018. And I was binge eating my stress like anyone does in my profession. A lot of people in the dietetics field, a lot of them have struggled with disordered eating. I'm not ashamed of it. I was for a long time. But for me, it was never about a body composition. It was about control, because I felt like if I wasn't perfect, because I had to be perfect as a kid, because God forbid I become, like the unfit parent that my dad had to divorce. And I don't say that to throw shade on my mother. I pray every day that she gets well. But part of my testimony is that I never took my problems to Christ. I tried to solve and hide them myself, and that kills people. It takes them out. And I had battled with some suicidal ideation because I believed that if I couldn't be a dietitian, then I didn't deserve to live, and there was no point in me being on this earth. And so I know it's very tangential, but in those final moments when I was studying, before I surrendered and decided to do it God's way, I was binge eating, and I had ate so much. It was like it was all like healthy food, of course, but I felt so full and so much shame. And I used a spatula and I tried to make myself vomit. And you know what happened, Chad, was I ended up swallowing the spatula. I coughed and somehow swallowed it, and it was lodged in my esophagus. And I felt like I was pushing it further and further down every time I reached for it. And in those, in my mind, I was going to die because I was panicking. And again, I kept pushing it further down and I couldn't breathe. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die. My family's going to find me this way. I was living in an apartment in Michigan at the time, and nobody would have found me. It was a Friday night and I didn't have friends there. And I just remember flashing through my mind of I had only one nephew at the time, this is how my family's going to find me. I'm going to be dead. And it just it was just the most, I don't know, the most life-altering thing that happened next was I fell to my knees and I said, Jesus, save me. And it felt like a giant arm reached down my throat and the spatula flung across the room. And with it, bloody tissue. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've ruptured my esophagus. And I know I've told this story to some people and they look at me like I'm crazy. But again, I have a master's, I have all these accolades, I'm a science-based person. You can't explain medically that what happened to me wasn't God, because after seeing all that bloody tissue, I'm like, I got to drive myself to the ER. So at 10 o'clock at night, I drove myself to the ER on the other side of Lansing, Michigan, because I didn't want anyone to know. And I sat in the ER and I had drank the contrast. I got the scan and not a single scratch. They're like, you're fine. And I just couldn't believe it. And I told them what happened. And I felt like a few of the nurses that were with me, they're like, do you want me to call anyone? And I said, no, nobody can know that I'm here. And it was like, if you've ever been alone, Jesus was next to me. He never left my side. And I was so ashamed that I couldn't tell my family. And I'm sure they would have wanted to know as I got older, but I couldn't let them know that I was struggling that bad. And again, I share all this because I think with people in their nutrition, they feel like they have to do it on their own and they have to put themselves together before they can ask for help. And Jesus will meet you where you're at. He'll save you. I mean, I called on the Lord. Jeremiah 33:3 is like the 911, right? Call on the Lord and he'll tell you unsearchable things you don't know. God saved me, and I had that encounter, and it had to get so bad that he had to save my life. And I'm sure he saved me many times before that I didn't see. But that story has been really profound to young girls that battle disordered eating. It has one of the highest mortality rates because it goes undiagnosed. And in that situation, I said, laying in the hospital bed, like just so much shame and guilt of like, I'm so sorry I did this, God, and I'll do whatever you save me, whatever you want me to do at this point, I'll do it. And so leading into the RD exam, when I surrendered that to him, I passed. And since then, God has opened up every single door. I started my private practice with him as the foundation. I built it on a rock. And so I am not here today alive with whatever accomplishments people like to bring up. That success is all because of Jesus. By my own devices, I should be dead in a ditch.
Mm-hmm. Well, no wonder you're so passionate about what you do. That explains a lot. And that's actually what I wanted to get into before we started breaking down the the nuances about nutrition and really digging into the technical aspects of that and learning the important pieces of nutrition and supplements and all that stuff. I did want to spend some time today understanding really who you are and what got you here. And obviously you just shared a big piece of that, but I do want to hear more about going back to, I mean, that's a big statement. You said most of my life I was an atheist, and, the Lord revealed himself to you later on in life, and it's a long story, and there was trauma when you were growing up. So I do want to hear more about that story, just going through, leading up to the point that the Lord was revealed to you. Like, what was going on at home and even up through your teenage years, I assume, in terms of your faith and
yes, lack thereof, really.
Yeah. And is that because you didn't is that because you weren't exposed to it? Is that a decision you made for yourself? Is it what your parents taught you?
Great, all of that. So I have to preface that, I am not here to ever throw shade on a religion. I don't believe in religion. I believe in a relationship with Jesus. And so part of my distaste for Jesus was the Catholic Church. And so I loved my grandmother, Chad. So going back to my childhood, my parents divorced when I was 1. I have an older sister. She's amazing. I have a brother. My dad remarried. And, just being a child, we didn't, my dad raised us. He has a trucking business. We just grew up hard. We were, washing dishes and doing chores, 5, 6 years old. Again, I'm very grateful for it. It helped me foster a work ethic, but we never had the opportunity to actually sit down with someone and work through, well, why don't you have a mother? I was I was angry. I mean, I used to say, well, God, how come you would take my mother away from me? I didn't get to have a mom, and my dad was working a lot. And so being just this little girl, and I was the youngest, and my grandmother stepped up, and she was a very devout Catholic, and I love her. And she would take us to church, and we'd sit there in the pew, Chad, and the priest would stand up there all high and mighty and tell us how we were all going to hell if we didn't change. And I'm like, I didn't even get a chance. Like, we're just little kids and we have this really tough life. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, this is the loving thing to do, is to tell little innocent children that they're all going to hell and that, you know, they're terrible people and they need to repent and give all their money to the church. I'm just like, I mean, I could go into so many stories, but that was part of it, is just being exposed to that. And then, you know, as time went on, it was all about what I could control, right? And so part of everything was just the control. And I was like, I want nothing to do with that God thing. You know, he doesn't have time for my family and I. If he does exist, I don't care, because he wronged us. And so I blamed the Lord for all of the challenges, and why, you know, they would tell me in the church, well, God can do anything. He can heal anyone. And I would ask, well, why won't he heal my mother? Why won't he help us? Why?
And what was going on with your mom?
So she, bipolar, schizophrenic, you know, we had visitation with her up until I was probably 5 or 6. I was really little. And so my dad had a battle for full custody. She made some pretty outlandish accusations that he was an alcoholic, which my dad doesn't drink, and that he abused us, which is not true. And so she was unfit to be a parent. You know, I pray for her every day that she gets well. I know she's gotten a copy of my devotional book. Her dad, my grandpa, gave her one, but she just chose to reject, you know, medication. And that's part of actually what goes back to my nutrition story, is when I was little and I had heard about my mother's condition, and I was like, well, that's interesting. I've read, you know, Ask Jeeves was the research at the time that we had access to, that avocado, like B vitamins, healthy fats, omegas, could actually influence and decrease inflammation and could help with cognitive function. And I just thought, well, maybe if my mother could have had a better diet, and I guess she had struggled with disordered eating as well. And so she didn't want to take medication because it would make her gain weight. And so it made me even more angry, because my dad tried to, you know, go to counseling and make things work. And we did get baptized Lutheran and we went to Sunday school. But again, I also was a tomboy. And so growing up without a mother, I love dresses and, you know, I love to be a woman. But when I was a little girl, I went hunting and fishing with my dad. I was a tomboy. And so I got bullied. And so I don't want to paint this picture of my life has been hard all of the time. But when I was a child, it really was. And so I got like bullied and picked on for being a tomboy, you know, wearing boy clothes. But my dad was a single father. I didn't have a mother. And so again, I got angry, like, God, if you really love me, why would you allow me to go through these things? And so it was a lot of that. And then, you know, sports I excelled at. And that's why I love being a sports dietitian, helping these kids figure out, you know, the right foods at the right time. Because in high school, I underfueled my body. I passed out during class. And so I just, you know, went on being a kind person, but I just rejected my faith because of the church. And then what really set me over the edge was I started dating a guy in college, and his family was really religious, and his mother broke up with me for her son because I didn't want to go to church with them anymore, because I felt like it was being disingenuous and I, you know, didn't believe in what was being said.
Yeah.
So I stopped going to church. And so she called me and they, you know, broke up with me. You know, we laughed like that. Mama's boy, but jokes aside, it really crushed me, because she said that my son can't marry into a broken family and you don't have a faith, so you can't marry my son. You need to stop dating him. And so again, I'm like, you Christians, you're such great people. Like, I mean, I do not sleep around. I obviously, you know, we're all sinners, but I truly believed in my heart that how dare you? I couldn't control that I didn't have a mother. I couldn't control half the stuff that she was accusing me of. And so I got even more angry, but something just broke in me, because as I had started my personal training business as an undergrad in college, and just something was constantly missing, right? You talk about the hunger and thirst for something. There was no amount of success, no amount of training, no amount of proper nutrition, control, perfect scores on tests that I could, you know, fill that void that the Lord obviously put in my heart. And so I went to one of the churches in town. In fact, it was the boy that broke up with me, his pastor from his hometown. And so I started going to these faith building classes before my college classes at like 6 o'clock in the morning for an hour. And so I just said, you know, I'm not an ignorant person. If everyone's going to make such a big fuss about this Jesus thing, I'm going to go and look into it. I'm going to actually have an open mind, because I like to be a lifelong learner. Maybe there's something here that I missed. And so I didn't go into it thinking that I was going to find Jesus. I went into it thinking like, I'm going to learn and I'm going to understand this and I'm going to be able to tell this woman how wrong she was and to basically, make her feel ashamed for doing what she did to me. And so obviously my heart wasn't in the right heart posture, but somewhere along the line of, class 6 or 7, when I was learning about arrow points down instead of arrow points up, it's not about what we do, but what's been done for us. I just started crying and realized that I had been making myself my God and that it wasn't working anymore because I was feeling sad and depressed, and it was really God that was missing from my life. And so I didn't have all the answers then. I mean, I started believing in him, and I realized that this ladder that I had been climbing and being angry all the time wasn't helping anything. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. And so I got baptized and I started going to that church. I never got back together with that boy, even though he came back. It wasn't the right fit. And so started believing in God. But a very important part of the story is that just because I had gotten baptized and I believed in God, that didn't mean that I was actually following him or obeying him, because then I ended up, going through what I did later in life with the spatula and the dietitian thing. But I had met a man. The other part of me actually becoming the disciple that I am today is that I met a very abusive man that was a fake Christian, and he used scripture to manipulate me and to abuse me. And had I been reading my Bible the way that I am now, I never would have even given him the time of day because I would have seen the writing on the wall. And so when I was engaged to him and dating him, I wasn't actively reading my Bible. I moved in with him. I slept with him, all sins that are terrible. And obviously they didn't help. But part of my story is that I put my faith in everything that, was outside of what I should have been doing, which is reading scripture, Jesus, having a solid community and a church. And when I was engaged to that man, I had told him about the spatula story, and he weaponized it against me that if I ever left him, who's going to tell everyone about it? And he isolated me, and we went through a lot of things. But part of my testimony is that I left him. He was abusive. I got out, and I had to get the police involved. And I, again, went back to the exact same place that I did when I was a kid of like, God, why would you do this to me? The man had struggles with alcohol and addiction, and I was willing to go through all of it with him. I was loyal to him. I blamed God, but I put myself in that situation. It's not biblical to move in with someone before marriage or to sleep with them. I own those mistakes, but I still was angry with God. And so I basically took steps back. I went back to my childhood ways, and I had went back to Minnesota after leaving this man in Michigan. I know it's a very long tangential story, but when I went back to Minnesota, Chad, and I'm walking around the gravel roads, my family of a farm, and I'm walking and I'm contemplating like, I don't want to live, God. I don't have anything. I have nothing. I'm this dietitian, but I had just given everything to this man, and he mistreated me and abused me. Like, are you really good? Do you really have good things for me? Because it doesn't feel like it, because all I've ever done is try to help people. And yet here I am, almost 30 years old, single, no children. And I had almost just gotten, I was engaged to a man that proposed with a Bible, and he engraved my ring with a scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. I mean, all of these godly things that I thought were for me, but were completely wrong. I went through all of it, and I couldn't understand, and I blamed him. But I also sat with it, and I decided that I'm either going to trust God and I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to let go of all these negative thoughts, and I'm going to change my mind, and I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to prioritize scripture before screens. I'm going to live a pure life. I'm not sleeping with a man until marriage. I'm just going to follow you, Lord, and we're going to do it one day at a time. And 6 years later, here we are, and it has not been easy, and I am not perfect, and I work on things every single day. But part of my testimony is that you can't be a true follower of Christ and not be obeying God, because it will leave you in a mess, pieces, because that's what I was. I was in pieces. And I think that it resonates with a lot of people, because they think that, once you get married or once you have children, that's when your life starts. No, your life starts the day that you truly surrender to Christ and you obey him and follow him, because he blesses what you're obedient to in ways that I can't even explain the amount of joy I've had sharing my testimony to helping other, young women and girls, and just the me that I've become, that little girl that went without a mother and didn't feel loved. I can now be that for other people, and God has redeemed me and he's healed me. And it all started with the decision to turn over my life to Christ. And it wasn't easy.
Man, that's a heck of a story, Wendi. I would have never guessed, just watching your content and seeing just how full of joy and
it's Jesus
and energy and passion that you are, that is your story. I mean, that's a heck of a story. I want to ask you, like, have you been able to reconcile all of those traumatic circumstances that you've experienced, all of the abuse from so-called Christians and things like that, and the circumstance that was out of your control that is part of your story and your struggle and growing up without a mother, and which, by the way, I don't even think that we can calculate how traumatic that is, like growing up without a mother. I don't even think we can calculate what that does, the struggles, the problems that creates in a young child. But have you been able to reconcile those circumstances now with your faith? Because there was that common thread through your story of, like, you were essentially blaming God or saying there's no way a God exists if this is what's happening to me. Like, there's no way possible. Have you been able to?
It's really interesting you asked me that, because nobody's ever asked me that. And honestly, I don't believe that I've fully reconciled, because it's like the thorn that I have that I'll probably never lose, because if I do, then I won't rely on God. I'll rely on myself. But he has healed things, but I'm still working through a lot of stuff. And I'll be transparent about this. I love being a dietitian. I love educating, families and kids and helping parents. And one thing that Satan is really coming for me still is that I want to be the mother that I never had. I want to be a wife. I want to be all those things. And I've been single for 6 years, right, pursuing the Lord. There's men that have come, but they're not living a godly life. And so something that I grapple with is, God, if I'm being obedient and I'm following you and I'm pointing people to Christ and I'm doing all these things, like, you've put this desire on my heart for a reason, right? Why can't I become a mother? Why can't we reconcile that? Like, I'm 35, and although my fertility is great, because I am very healthy, I don't drink alcohol. I mean, who knows? Maybe I won't be a mother. Maybe I will be something else that, God has for me, and I have to accept that. And that's part of faith, right? Faith is believing without seeing. And so I have to believe that God is for me. He goes before us. And I also know that the devil, he knows exactly how to get to us, and he plays on our vulnerabilities. And so I would say that I haven't reconciled it, because I still operate sometimes in that space. I show up online to help other people, and my joy comes from Jesus. I love making people feel seen in the ways that I wasn't as a child. And that's a big part of it. And so when people are like, oh, well, if God really loved you, then why are you still single? You're probably going to run out of time. You're going to be 40 soon. And so I get a lot of that. And it's very challenging, because I do have a heart for people, but I know that God loves me and he is for me. And whatever plan he has, he saved me so many times. He's pulled me out of the fire. And I think about Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're thrown into the furnace and he makes it 7 times hotter, right? King Nebuchadnezzar. And so Jesus is right there in the furnace with them. Even if I'm on fire and I feel this for the rest of my life, even if I remain single the rest of my life and I still go through some of these challenges, that's okay, because Jesus is right there with me. But I have full faith that his plans are far superior than mine. So I just trust him. Although that's a desire I want, I don't know if that's a desire that will be honored.
Yeah. It's it's like one of the greatest questions that I think we all ask ourselves, all of us who have experienced trauma and just really experienced the brokenness of this world. And I'm sure people listening, if anyone's listening to your testimony, they're thinking, well, don't you still ask yourself, like, well, why did God allow those things to happen to me?
Do you think though, Chad, that that's a bad question though? I used to ask that as a non-believer, but I think it's a terrible question. Do you want to know why?
Why is that? Yeah.
Because if you read the scriptures, we live in a fallen world. Why not? I think we should be blaming Satan. Like, not today, Satan, James 4:7, right? He has to flee from us. But people blame God for what Satan has done, right? And Adam and Eve, right? It all goes back to Genesis. And once I read my Bible, it was just like a light bulb.
Yeah, that is the exact same answer that I arrived at. And it's so hard for us to accept that we are subject to the fallen world that we live in. And like, we're also subject to our own fallen nature. And so it's like, in a big way, yeah, the Bible gives us the narrative that if you'll read it and understand it, you have a better understanding of the trauma that you have experienced and how God, a good and righteous and loving and just God, can exist, but at the same time we're experiencing these things because we're subject to the curse that was put on man because of sin. That's the exact same answer that I've arrived at in my own mind.
I like your answer better. It's more.
It's really cool that you brought that up because it's a question that I think a lot of people ask, and it's like, well, the Bible kind of lays that out, and it gives you the narrative around why things are the way they are.
In Romans 8:28, God uses all things for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And so
that's the goodness of God.
Yes. Yeah. And our hope is in heaven. Even if you're having a bad moment, it's never a bad day, right? Not everyone woke up today, but it's true that our hope is, yes, here in Jesus, but it's also in heaven. And so we don't have to deal with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, you name it. It's not in heaven. That's where I'm some days. Lord Jesus, just come back today. Like, I am so ready. If he came back in 5 minutes, I like to ask people this question. If Jesus were to return in 5 minutes, would you be ready? And it's amazing some of the answers I get. Like, well, I got to go get stuff in order. I'm like, friend, and they're Christians. And it's like, have you even read the Bible? Do you think it matters what you do with your 401k or what things you organize? Like, this all going to be decimated. Mm-hmm. It will not be here. We're going to heaven. And so I think it takes the pressure off of a lot of us and parents too. You're doing the best that you can. And my encouragement is, a lot of the hardship that I went through as a child, I learned how to cook and clean and do laundry and all of these things at a very young age that kids today at 20 they're asking me, a lot of parents have hired me, it seems like, to parent their children. They're like, well, Wendi, you have it all figured out. I didn't have a choice. It was survival mode, right? And so I think that a lot of that hardship has been a blessing to others and to families, all by the grace of God, but teaching these kids how to cook and why we need to power up with protein. And so a lot of the things that I went through as a child, I had no idea that they would serve me today as, a speaker, an entrepreneur, all the things. And so when I choose to focus on those things, instead of, well, look at what I didn't have, it's look at what I do have and look at what God has done for me and look at what he's done for my family. My brother and sister doing incredibly well. And, I'll share this. Not everyone in my family has faith. And so that's another layer to your question that's hard for me to reconcile is, okay, God, I want them to experience the joy and peace that I have. And they don't have it because they don't know you. And I also don't want them to be, tossed into the furnace or here, depart from me, I never knew you. That's a very real fear. I think that a lot of us should have. It should convict us to go out and to share the love of Jesus and not just wave our Bibles around and say, well, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe, because that's what a lot of the Catholics did. That's not an effective way to be a vessel for Christ. That does not point people to Jesus. And so I think for me, part of my story as well is writing my devotional book and pouring out onto the pages and inviting people into my pain as a purpose that points people back to Christ. And, it's funny, there's a mom a couple of years ago that said, you do not look like what you've been through. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she said, oh, you're just so put together and everybody thinks that you have this perfect life. And I'm like, oh, that is interesting. Let me tell you what God has done for me. And so what's interesting, Chad, is that this woman wasn't a believer, but she wasn't repelled by me. She was drawn to me. She said that I have a very welcoming, opening spirit. And she said, you don't get that from religious people. And so I think part of it is I know exactly what not to say, because I experienced, the manipulation by a lot of Christians. A lot of them used scripture as a weapon to get what they want, and not in a God-honoring way. And so I never want to be like that. Again, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying I experienced everything from a very negative perspective when it came to Christians. And so I want to be completely opposite of that. I want to be how Jesus would. If Jesus walked down your neighborhood, your community, what would he do right now? Would he go around telling you, how terribly you're living? No, he would pick up trash. He would help kids. He would help parents. He would find solutions to show people a better way to live. And so that's what I want to do as a registered dietitian.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So over the last 6 years, kind of after you got out of that abusive relationship and you were finally like, okay, I'm gonna commit myself to, to the Lord, essentially. What were some of the most important pieces of that, like tangible pieces of that? Like, I know you mentioned many times really reading and spending time in scripture and meditating on the scripture, but like, what are some other important pieces of that journey over the last 6 years when you made that decision to do that?
Yeah, and one of the choices, I talk about this in my book, but I saw, again, people can believe or not believe. I don't care, because I know what I saw, and I'd rather look foolish before people than our Father. But this man that I was engaged to, we went to a cabin in northern Michigan, and he was sleeping in another room, but there was a face that showed up when we went to sleep. He was sleeping in another room. I was obviously in my bed. There was I'm not going to say a demon, but it was an angry face, and I screamed, hey, and then it was his face, and then it was gone. And so I feel like there were definitely demons within him, and I experienced that on a really crazy level. And so I share that because he also put a severe fear in me the night before I left him, and before I packed half of what I could and left the rest behind, because I thought he was going to kill me, is he had a gun. And I also have a gun. I have my permit to carry, obviously, but I was sleeping in my office floor the night before I left him. And I remember having a conversation with Jesus, and he's like, you're going to leave tomorrow, and I need you to just look at me. You don't look around. You don't talk to anyone. You just look at me, and you get in the car and you go. And so that was very real to me, because that night I didn't know if the man that I was allegedly in love with, and he was in love with me, was going to shoot me or not. I had the office door locked. The power went out. But Jesus was talking to me, and he was like, just trust me. It is going to be really hard, Wendi, but I love you. And at some point, this is going to be part of your story, but you just got to trust me right now. And so that conversation, and then, leaving the next day, same thing. He tried to use scripture and try to use all these things. But remember, Jesus said, keep your eyes on me. Do not look around. Do not talk to anyone. And so I think that's part of it, is because in this world, we'll have trouble, right? But take heart, for I have overcome the world. And so I think for a lot of people that I've talked to, is that they get distracted with things. If Satan can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. And part of my journey in becoming who I am today is staying focused on Jesus and not the storms, because the storms have been everywhere. When I moved to Nashville for 3 years, the cockroach infested apartment, it was a crap hole, but I had to pay off my student loan debt, which I did, $90,000. I worked my butt off, all by the grace of God. But again, he said, keep your eyes on me. And I just kept thinking about that and just meditating on that. And obviously with the scriptures, and then just the storms that came along the way, in my car driving, and just thinking to myself, like, how am I going to make all this work? And again, keep your eyes on me. And so those were things between the Lord and I that really helped me, because it has not been easy. It's been a really tough life, but a very blessed life. but keeping our eyes on the Lord and not the storm. And we know the disciples, I mean, there's so much scripture to support that as well. But what I love about God so much is that he is so forgiving, but he knows us so well, and he knows exactly how to get our attention if we have an open heart. And so I would encourage anyone out there, if you're saying, well, I'd actually love to follow Jesus, I'd love to get to know him, he will meet you where you're at. Invite him into your heart and into your life, and just take his hand, because he loves you and he wants to help you and he wants to bless you. And he does not want you to get engaged to anyone. He doesn't want you to be abused. And when I started, Chad, looking at myself like a little girl that was loved, part of my story is I know that my dad loves me so much, and I never want to embarrass him, but it is part of my testimony. My dad taught me how to read. And he taught me how to read because we went to a tiny school in Grand Meadow, Minnesota. And unfortunately, the teachers did not teach me how to read. And so my dad, being who he is, he wanted his little girl to know how to read. And so, of course, he had only agricultural magazines nearby to teach me how to read. And he definitely didn't hold back. He cussed, he swore, but gosh darn it, his little girl was reading. And I've been told I have the gift of gab. But I share that story because in that moment, too, as part of a non-believer, like, what kind of a God would allow a dad to sit there and struggle at 12 o'clock at night to teach his little girl how to read, and then for her to feel stupid? And part of my shame is that I've just always felt like I wasn't good enough because I didn't know how to read, and people would say things. And so I just lived with a lot of these distractions. But if I would have known Jesus when I was a little girl, I would have known that he was right there with us crying. He was crying there with us. And so I bring that into the equation because I've never had any formal speaking training. I've never done any of these special courses. I just have learned that God used that really difficult situation as a huge blessing. And I get on stages and I speak to large groups of people, and they give compliments like, "You're such a great speaker. Where did you learn?" My dad and Jesus, honestly. So I share that because, again, keeping our eyes on the Lord. If I would have known Jesus when I was a little kid, it could have helped me so much, and I would have had less pain, and I would have experienced far more joy through those challenges, those trials and tribulations. As it says in the book of James, they build the testing of our faith. And so I love the Lord deeply, and I want everyone else to experience that same joy, like the firefighter that pulled you out of a burning building. You want to tell everyone about him. And so that's why I want to tell everybody about the God that saved me and that he's been with me, even when I rejected him.
That's solid. I'm teaching a message tonight on how to draw, because someone asked me the question, I want to get closer to Jesus. Like, I want to draw nearer to the Lord. And that's why I asked you that question, because that's actually not part of one of the points I'm going to make tonight, but staying focused on who the Lord is, keeping him at the forefront of your mind's eye, and not allowing, being conscious enough to not allow distractions and troubles and difficulties of this life to distract you from who Jesus is as our Lord, our Savior, our high priest, and all the things that he is to us, and staying focused on that is a practice that if you are feeling distant from the Lord, I'm not saying that practicing this is always going to work and it's dang sure not going to be easy, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly. And at what point, and was it a hard decision for you to integrate your faith into your business?
Actually, not at all. Everyone asks me, well, how do you do that? I didn't have a choice. God chose me. And I told him, right? I sat in the hospital bed, said, whatever, Lord, I'll put you first. Matthew 6:33. But first seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. I never worried about the numbers. I put people first, profit second. I mean, I've done a lot of free presentations. I've done a lot of, because I truly love nutrition. I love, talking to people about how to influence their power, strength, speed, improve their body composition, get off pharmaceuticals. It is such a joy, but I've never worried about the numbers because God has provided. And so when I started my business, Chad, I built it on a rock. And so whatever God said went. And so I've had Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. That's a part of my mission statement. And I knew a lot of people probably wouldn't like it, but I didn't care. Again, I'd rather look foolish before this world than instead of our Father. I mean, someday we're going to stand before him. And what a shame it would have been if we didn't follow through on things that we have full knowledge of doing. And so I think about that. The pain of discipline is far less than the pain of regret. And so if we discipline ourselves, drawing closer to Christ, it's the same thing with our nutrition, our sleep, our health. Has to be a routine, and not just because you're going through the motions, but you have to have the right heart posture. It's a lifestyle. I eat well because I want to feel well. I exercise because I don't want to have disease. I want to live a long, fruitful life, and I want to move without pain. And so that's why it's so critical that, scripture is part of your daily routine in the morning. Everyone, if you go on social media, Chad, right? Everyone has these ridiculous morning routines. I get up at 5 o'clock, I do a cold plunge. Hey, I get it. Like I love a morning routine. But if your morning routine doesn't include at least 5 minutes with the Lord, how do you expect to get closer to him? You have all of this time for everything else, but you're telling me that you don't have time for our Lord and Savior who literally died on the cross for you? And some people are like, oh, you're so right. Thank you for that. And then other people, you meet them where they're at. But I will say this, when I started my business, I was amazed I had more people gravitating towards me because they saw how authentic it was. They saw that I wasn't using Jesus as a mascot.
Yeah, that is obviously that's what drew me to your content, was like, here we have a woman who's not only on fire for helping people through this passion that she has for nutrition, but she's also on fire for the Lord. Like, and you can see right off the bat that is, your faith is the foundation that everything else that you're doing is built off of. And that is what drew me to your content. And it, made me want to learn more about you and reach out to you and have you on the show. So I love hearing that I'm not the only one. And I'm so thankful that you had the courage to do that, because it's unique. It's unique in your space.
Very unique. And thank you, Chad. Again, thank you for having me. I was very shocked, when I was communicating with your producer, Courtney. I was just like, why would he want me to be on his show? I'm not a pastor. It was just very interesting. And obviously God provides, and part of, putting Christ first, this too, we never worry because our Father provides for us. He puts in the order. I think about my dad taking us out to eat when we were kids, a special time when we would go out to eat. We never had to worry about paying for anything because God, Dad ordered it, so he's going to pay for it. And I think about the same thing with our God, right? If he ordered it, he's going to pay for it. And I think a lot of people would actually be more prosperous and fruitful in their businesses if they prioritized Christ. And it definitely is going to come with some pushback. I actually was rejected from a few schools in Nashville because they wanted me to take scripture off my final slide. And I said, that's Proverbs 27:17. That's in a weight room. That's universal, whether you're a Christian or not. And someone said, well, that might be offensive. We don't want to make anyone uncomfortable in the room. And it's like, uncomfortable? You think that scripture is uncomfortable? Just wait until you get tossed. I didn't say this out loud, but I'm thinking in my head, like, these little girls are in dire need of not only nutrition education, but what you're asking me to do is to deny my Father before people. And I simply won't do that. And so you will have to find someone else because I refuse to bend a knee. And it was challenging in the moment, but it was an easy decision. And what's so cool about our God is that was a contract. That was something that I needed, but God provided 3 times that with a different school who was like, thank you, share all about Jesus.
That's
we
awesome.
Need this. So don't be afraid to share your faith and absolutely stand firm in it. And I don't truly believe right now, Chad, and I know for you and many of your followers, a lot of people are awake. But when we go out into the world, people are worried about celebrities. They're worried about GLP-1s. They're worried about all of these things that are so meaningless. And it's like, you are so asleep. And I feel so sad for you because I used to be you. I didn't know Jesus. And so that's also why I'm so passionate for the Lord is, yeah, we can enjoy things and have fun and we can help people. But truly, if we live our lives like he's coming back today, a friend of the world is an enemy of God. I don't want to be an enemy. I'm not missing my ride.
Yeah. A verse that I'm using in in my lesson tonight when I teach is it just reminded me of what you were saying about the morning routine, how you can prioritize all of these things, but if you don't have at least 5 minutes either in prayer or in scripture, and I would suggest making like
Definitely.
shorten the cold plunge, spend a little more time on that, like maybe prepare your breakfast the night before or something like that. But a scripture that keeps coming to mind is, and I think it fits with your entire, like your presentation of yourself is, man does not live on bread alone, but from every word that proceeds forth from the mouth of God. And I don't know, I feel like that fits because that's what you're doing. Like you're talking tangibly about bread, but at the same time, you're making it obvious that this is the foundation. There's another type of sustenance that you need other than this tangible bread, and you're making that part of the conversation around health and nutrition, and I love that.
Amen.
Let's take a quick break, and then I got a ton of questions for you.
Yes.
About food and culture and supplements and
creatine, hopefully. Everyone loves to hear about
I'm looking
creatine.
forward to learning about all of this. So thank you for sharing your testimony, by the way. That was very powerful. All right, we'll be right back. All right, guys, so you are watching chemo drip into your child's port right now, and there's not a single thing that you can do to stop it. You're standing in a hospital hallway on the oncology floor holding a mediocre, lukewarm cup of coffee, doing math that no parent should have to learn. Millimeters, neutrophil counts, and how many days until the next scan. You've read my chart at 2 a.m, having to use ChatGPT to understand the lab values, and you've wondered if what you feed him could somehow undo the toxicity of the very treatment that's supposed to save him. No one is there to answer these questions for you. Not really. Biodynamic Wellness is not from a textbook. It came from a mom named Susan Johnson, standing exactly where you are standing now, when her son Kicker was 2.5, and the only plan anyone handed her was chemo for years. So she built something to run alongside that plan, not instead of it, never instead of it. Real food, built for a body in active treatment, supplement guidance that's safe alongside of chemo, and a home reshaped around healing instead of just getting through the day. You are not failing your child by wanting more than one plan. You're exhausted and you're still showing up, and that is the whole fight right there. Susan teaches a free info session herself, sharing how to help your child thrive through and beyond cancer treatment, and she'll professionally answer any of your questions on a call. If you're in the middle of this right now, come and sit in on it. We'll attach the links in the description of this episode. If you guys need access to this awesome service because you're going through the hardest time that you've ever experienced in your life, check it out if you need it. Don't do it alone. So I was in the SEAL teams with a bunch of dudes from Texas, and they all just swore up and down that Texas was the best state ever. And they all were looking forward to the day that they got out of the Navy and so that they could move back to Texas. Well, I've been to Texas many times since I've been out of the Navy, and I've been to all the spots: San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin. I've been to all the major hubs, and I still have not been able to figure out why on earth anyone would want to live in Texas.
I think it's a cult. You're stuck there. You grew up there.
I guess it is. I mean, they take a lot of pride in the fact that they're from Texas. I've seen that, but I can't figure it out for the life of me. So, yeah, I did have another question for you before we kind of move on. You know, that story that you shared of you're literally in your apartment, you think you're going to die, and you cry out to the Lord, like, how long did it take for you to be able to share that part of your story?
With a close group of Christians, good Christians in Nashville, it took about 4 years. Well, I told the guy, but to tell the story publicly, I actually recorded a YouTube video in 2023. I told my dad and a couple of close family members about it, and then I said, I'm doing this video, and I made the video public. And I shared all of it and all the embarrassing parts, all of it.
How did you get to the point that you could share that story?
God, he said, it's time, Wendi. And it was like, there's a point we're going to have to share this. And it was like coming actually in 2020 and 2021. Like I knew that there would be a point where I would have to get to share it. And it was going to come when I was confident and healed. And also when I finally realized like my identity and worth is not found in what others think. It's what Jesus thinks. And so then at that point I was like, I don't care about these people. I don't care what they think of me. If they want to think that I'm some, hypocrite, like look at the dietitian can't even get her nutrition right. And she had, for the longest time, I had that shame of like, well, people won't believe me. They won't trust me if I had struggled with this. And I think for like a lot of alcoholics, they're like, well, I can't share this because what will people think of me? They won't take me serious or whatever. So once I got over all that crap and it was like, Wendi, it's not about you. It's about Jesus. I just didn't care anymore. And it was like the most liberating thing to record that video and to post it. And I just decided to, share it. And I shared it in my newsletter. And people were like, wow, like, I never thought that you went through that. Like it's almost like they were happy. Like good, and in a way of like, I don't know, obviously online you come up as a professional, but like we all struggle with stuff. And I just think a lot of people I noticed were actually happy that it happened to me. Like, oh good, she has problems. That's actually what my ex-fiance said. It was like he was happy that I was struggling with that, but it really just became a point where I couldn't not, I couldn't conceal it. And there was a scripture I shared, I can't remember, in Psalms, just about confessing those that can confess their sins. I can't remember. That's pathetic. I should remember. But I think that a lot of us still struggle too. And I know in the health and fitness space, there's a lot of people suffering in silence with it.
Yeah.
They have shame. So.
Yeah. And I hope the listeners hear that. Like a lot of people are walking around with these really dark secrets, and they're still feeling a lot of shame around them, and I've been one of them. And so have you.
Yes.
And I don't know, man, I just want people to be encouraged that like realize that some of the things that you have been through, it's going to take years and years and years before you can make any sense of it, before you're able to share it in an intelligible way, in a beneficial way. Like, don't beat yourself up if you're not out there sharing your hardest moments publicly with the world, because it's okay if you're not. Like the Lord will, I agree with you, because the same thing happened to me about multiple things, the stupidest things, the things I'm most ashamed of that I've done in my life. It took me years and years and years before I was able to actually share them publicly with the world. And that's okay, man. So don't beat yourself up if you're not there yet, because we definitely need the Lord to bring us to a point that we can share those things in a helpful way.
Yes. Edifying way.
Yeah.
You've helped so many people too with your story.
Yeah. Praise the Lord for that. I mean, All right, let's dig into the professional side of, although obviously after hearing your story and your passion, I don't really feel like there's a professional Wendi and a Christian Wendi, which is another thing that I love about who you are.
I like that.
It's all integrated.
Daughter first.
Yeah, which is what we should all shoot for that. Like that's the goal is not to just be a Christian on Sunday when you're with other Christians and then, be a factory worker when you're at work on the line.
Wait, are you saying I just torched my credibility?
No,
I'm just kidding.
I'm saying that it's
lit fire to the whole thing.
It's a beautiful example.
I just don't care anymore.
It's a beautiful example of what we should all strive for. Like our faith should be integrated into all aspects of our life. Great. How we parent, how we work, what we've been called to do professionally. So I guess I want to ask, in your experience, what are some of the major problems that stem from poor nutrition? Like currently, we talked about infertility. Mm-hmm. So have you seen that, heard of that, studied that?
Yes, some of my older clients have really struggled with it. We changed their nutrition. I think the biggest problem right now is that we have a lack of fundamentals. We have lack of access to healthy food and also how to prepare that food. I think a lot of people lack just basic education on what the best options are. And so the biggest problem is that people are not cooking meals at home. People don't gather, they don't sit together. They're snacking in front of their phone on ultra-processed foods. So they're overeating in calories and not getting adequate micronutrients and macronutrients. So it's a lot of empty calories. The average person walks 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day, right? And they overeat in calories. And so that inactivity coupled with ultra-processed foods is why we have the type 2 diabetes, obesity crisis right now. People are snacking on garbage and they're always hungry. And so they're not consuming enough protein and fiber. And colon cancer is on the rise too. So there's a lot of issues, but I would say that the number one issue is that people are not getting enough whole foods in.
And why, when I think, thankfully, this hasn't ever been something that I've personally struggled with. It seemed, for me, eating good food has always been, it's almost been intuitive. It's almost like instinctual, but it seems like we're losing that as a species. Yes. Do you have any thoughts around that? Like, why have people forgotten how to eat right?
Convenience is killing us. Going back to phones, right? People can just order. Why would I need to cook something? Why would I need to go to the grocery store? I'll just order it from my phone. And going back to, something that blows me away working with so many kids over the years, my dad is a crop farmer. And so, yeah, we ate meat, potatoes. We grew up with that. And obviously I started learning about nutrition as a kid, but a lot of kids lead, right? Their parents lead by example. So if the parents are buying things out of boxes, kids actually, and I've asked this, kids think that food comes from boxes. They have no concept that it actually comes from the ground. And so teaching the kids back to the basics and, biblically speaking too, we are told how to eat. The Bible has given us clear guidance on that, the animals and so plants. But I think a lot of the convenience is killing us and people love the highly palatable ultra processed foods because it gives them a quick dopamine hit.
Yeah. How does addiction play into this? Like, could you categorize this as an addiction?
Yes, food addiction is very real. A lot of people will use ultra processed foods, right, for that quick dopamine high. And they know that the brain remembers, right? And so you can get that every time you hit a donut, you get your Celsius. I think a lot of people are replacing just basic fundamental meals with donuts, chips, Takis. Some of the kids are walking around constantly with soda and snacks in their hand. And it's not healthy. And that's part of the problem is that we have people feeding on garbage and then they feel like garbage and they're not motivated to then go move their body. It's just unfortunately the evolution. We used to work and farm, right? Kids that grew up on farms, they were constantly moving. And so even if we ate cereal as kids, it was such an insignificant amount of calories because we were expending a lot. And so if kids are not playing sports, they're playing video games constantly. So it's not just the lack of nutrition, it's the lifestyle habits, it's the Netflix, the social media, video games. There are certain kids that play video games for 5 to 6 hours a day. And then that's where they're eating a lot of potato chips. And so the solution is we've got to remove that stuff. And then people will say, well, that's not fun. Well, most certainly it is fun. We can be outside. We can have picnics. Watermelon with some salt on it is incredibly delicious. And I think that if a lot of people actually, if we ate fruit, our taste buds would be, reset, because I think right now people are so used to, we have people adding sugar to fruit.
I was just going to ask you about that. You talk about removing these things, but how long does it take for a person's actual palate, when they eat something, they're like, man, this is good, or this piece of watermelon is sweet again. How long does that take reset that?
Yeah, 30 to 40 days for some people. That's why an elimination diet is really helpful too, because you've got people that everyone thinks that they have these gut issues, and the reality is they're eating a lot of ultra processed foods that are causing inflammation. Their gut microbiota is all jacked up because they've been on antibiotics. And so kefir, sauerkraut, fermented foods can help improve our gut health. And something I learned during my dietetic internship, a lot of the patients that were on antibiotics, we had them do 4 ounces of kefir in the morning and then 4 ounces in the afternoon to help with gut motility. And so I'm a dietitian, so we talk about poo all the time. If you're not going, potty regularly, number one, your urine, hydration, people don't drink enough water. Your urine should not be dark yellow, orange. A lot of people are dehydrated. Then also you should be doing number 2, consistently each and every day. It's normal to have a bowel movement. And so a lot of people, if you actually would remove the ultra processed foods, replace with whole foods, balance 25 to 40 grams of protein, 3 to 4 times per day, and then have produce, whether that be some sweet potato, apples, berries, that would actually be a really good way to balance out your blood sugar. And so the food addiction, people are not helping themselves when they just say, oh, well, this is just how I'm wired. Actually, respectfully, God didn't wire us that way. If you have low blood sugar, you eat carbohydrate with protein, and that can help raise your blood sugar instead of it being a roller coaster like many people do. This is the traditional American diet: is wake up, immediately grab coffee or an energy drink, and eat nothing until lunch. You're starving, and then overeat, and then feel exhausted in the afternoon, grab another coffee, energy drink, have some Cheetos, and then have a huge dinner, and then wonder why you feel like garbage, and then people blame the government. And the reality is we have to make better choices, and we have access to do so. I mean, Walmart, Aldi, there are tons of grocery stores that you can get affordable fruits and vegetables at, and obviously chicken, beef, steak, eggs. I'm a huge advocate. You can shop local if you're able. If you live in a big city, obviously that's going to be different, but I believe that people are not making the best decisions. And with the internet, YouTube, at this point, I think that people are rejecting the resources available, and that knowledge is basically useless. And that's why I get frustrated, Chad, because we literally have everything at our fingertips. Yeah. And so you can't tell me that you don't know what to eat, when a lot of us are educating for free on exactly what to eat, how much to eat, and when to eat.
Have the processed foods gotten worse over time? Because I grew up in the late 80s and through the 90s, and processed foods were pretty prevalent, TV dinners, hamburger helpers, and, microwave stuff and all that. But have they gotten worse in terms of what's in them? Or because I wonder, is a hamburger from McDonald's 20 years ago as bad as a hamburger from McDonald's today?
Yes, our ingredients have drastically changed. People want to produce things as cheap and as quick as possible, and so they're going to use low-tier ingredients. And so the seed oils is very nuanced, and I think for a lot of people, if they actually read the label, they would see that there's a truckload of ingredients in certain things that are marketed as healthy, and everything's protein infused, when in fact it's like a perfect example is, number one, I'm not eating bugs. I'm not going to eat bugs. I'm going to eat, animal protein, because if you actually look at the ingredient list on the, plant-based burgers, they are less healthy, more ingredients, more sodium, incredibly processed, people think that that's healthy. And a lot of people eat that stuff, right? They want to be vegan, vegetarian because they think that it's better for them when it's not. And so then they're eating more calories and more ingredients that can cause inflammation within the body. And you're not seeing that with just basic beef, right? 100% Angus beef. So people need to read labels, but I'm not going to say, I know for a fact that our government doesn't necessarily help us and they don't always have the best interests at heart. They always have a pharmaceutical for the solution though, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that our, ingredients have changed for a lot of people.
I asked this question because obviously my wife and I have a son now, and he's going to spend a lot of time with his grandparents. Thank the Lord. They're awesome. His grandparents are amazing people. But we are concerned about what grandparents are going to feed baby Solomon when he's 1-2 years old and he's able to eat solid foods. And I think grandparents who raised people my age through the 80s and 90s, they think, well, Chad, we gave Chad, cereal, or we gave Chad a Little Debbie snack, or when he was growing, and he turned out fine. Like, so why do you want to be so strict about what you're putting into your son's body now? Why can he not eat these things that you ate when you were growing up? Look at you. You're an athlete. You're healthy. You've accomplished great things. There's nothing wrong with you. But that Little Debbie snack is not got the same stuff in it.
Correct.
Now in 2026 that it had in it in 1994. Mm-hmm. And I've just wondered if that was true or not.
It is true. Even Twinkie has evolved. I mean, all of those, it's never been healthy, but the ingredients have drastically changed. And unfortunately, our habits have become more sedentary. So coupled with that, it's absolute chaos.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate for you guys who are listening to this and you're wanting to make changes, I want to reiterate what Wendi said. It's going to take 30 to 45 days to change your palate. A lot of this healthy stuff in Whole Foods might not taste good to you when you first make this transition. So that's a thing. Stick with it.
Yes, stick with it because it's a lifestyle and you'll feel better. You'll have less risk of disease. If you have kids, grandkids, you want to have a lifelong, joyful time with them, right? Instead of having all these aches, pains, you're no good to anyone if you're in a hospital bed. And I don't think that a lot of people understand either, how many small bowel obstructions in northern Minnesota I had to, chart on because these people were not drinking water. They were eating no fiber. They ate nothing but processed foods, drinking beer. I asked, a gentleman, well, how many glasses of water do you drink? He's like, oh, I just drink wine. There's water. He was serious. I was like, sir, but it's expensive. So with your health, right, the incentive to change your lifestyle and to want to eat well is obviously to glorify God, but it's expensive. And when you lose your health, it's the only problem that matters.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a billionaire. And he makes that point quite often. Like, when you have a sore throat as a billionaire, like, the only thing that you're concerned about is figuring out how to get this sore throat to go away.
Raw honey, local honey.
Yeah. It's just a great point to make, like what you're trying to say. This is so critical, and it's the biggest investment that you can make.
Yes.
That you have control over making in your life. Like, what about, like, going back to the conversation about how foods have gotten worse, like store-bought foods, bread. I love eating bread, but we buy these Thomas brand bagels for trips that we take out in the wilderness because it's, calorie dense and it kind of sticks to your ribs when you put some peanut butter on it. But, like, we left a pack of these bagels in our work trailer outside for 9 months and went and opened this pack of bagels. And it looked like you just pulled it off the shelf. There was no mold. It smelled fine. The texture was, how on earth is that even possible?
Preservatives.
Yeah. So let's get into this, let's get into this part of the conversation. Like, when we're talking about food, even food in the same category, not all food is created equal.
Correct.
Like, not all bread is created equal. So how do we know we're getting the good stuff, and how do we know we're getting something that's going to be able to sit in a trailer in the 90-degree Georgia heat for 9 months and not even get a speck of mold on it? But my mom can make a loaf of bread and bring it to the house, and within a week it's covered in mold if we don't eat it.
Ingredients. Obviously, when you add preservatives and chemicals, it can extend the shelf life.
Are those listed?
Yes. And what's crazy about the FDA too, it's the amounts, the parts per million too. It's like, well, it's just a little bit, and it's, generally recognized as safe. And so they can put those things into the foods because they've been considered safe at certain levels. And so it extends the shelf life. And so, yes, things are produced very different from when we were kids. I really think that a lot of people love making their own bread, but not everybody has time to make their own sourdough bread at home for gut health. So if you look at the label, you want to see as few ingredients as possible. And when you see things like bleached, enriched, those are not good things. You want to pause for caution, but the ingredient list should be shorter. And the first ingredient that's listed on the label, that's the highest amount within that food and item. So if it says sugar on it, the first ingredient, there's a lot of sugar. That's the most prominent. And so when you're looking at bread, you should see wheat and barley and rye. That should be within the first few ingredients.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, when you look at an ingredients list, if it says sugar, that's actually the healthier option than most of the other things on the shelf, because most of the other things are high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, or no added sugar.
Yeah. But
you're not, deli meats, same thing, that are added. A lot of those things added sodium too. I think of the average person, the person that's not being active, they're consuming way too much sodium, high blood pressure, very problematic.
How does this same principle apply to produce and meat? Like, all tomatoes aren't created equal.
They're not.
All beef is not created equal. Like chicken, all is
grass-fed, pasture-raised. Yes, it's all in the production and the care.
So is it worth the extra? Is it worth the extra money when you go to the grocery store to buy something that is labeled organic? And I guess I should ask right now, what does that even mean?
Yes, and so organic can still be treated with chemicals. It's just a smaller amount. It's worth it because there's less chemicals being used. But keep in mind, you still have to wash them thoroughly. You need to scrub that hard texture because cyclosporus, whatever that, infection is that's very contagious right now, it's on the surfaces, and it's a lot of people not washing their hands, but also people are getting sick. And so you could say that it's from the handling of those foods, the production, the farming, how you care for that crop, the topsoil too, the nutrients in our soil, that all affects the size, the color, the production, and
the flavor.
And the flavor. And when something sits, it's exposed to light, heat, and oxygen, it loses its nutrient composition. And so that's why I love frozen fruits and vegetables, because it locks in that nutrient value more so than sitting in the store. And so the production matters significantly, just like with watermelons. Picking out a watermelon that has a yellow belly. I mean, people have a variety of ways of picking out their produce. You look at a tomato, the color always isn't the best indicator of the amount of nutrients. It's more or less, where did it come from? How was it handled? How was it sourced? How was it grown and cared for? But it is worth it to get organic because there is less pesticides being used.
Yeah.
But some people can't afford organic, and then, but if you can, that's why I say the context, if you're able, and, all foods fit, just like your, conversation with grandparents raising kids, they can still have a treat, they can have a dessert, but it shouldn't be, at every meal. It should be 5 to 10% of the time versus whole foods 85% of the time.
Well,
compromise.
I hope my grandmother listens to this. She'll actually be inspired by that, by the way, because she can at least now have permission to give a treat.
Yeah. And here's something for a lot of people, too, that get overwhelmed. Well, you just want me to eat perfect. You're an adult. You have free will. You do what you want, but you'll feel better. You'll have less of a roller coaster with your energy levels throughout the day if you're powering up with protein, 25 to 40 grams of protein in the morning. I love having, eggs, salmon, beef with some blueberries, a little bit of Greek yogurt. You can have 1 to 2 ounces of each of the items. Then you're getting a wide array of nutrients, and balanced plate equals balanced blood sugar, right? And so for a lot of people that crave salt or sugar or chocolate, it's often a magnesium deficiency, potassium. And I just feel like a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And once you start eating better and removing some of these things, you will never go back. And in fact, I've helped kids. There were a few children that were over 300 pounds. We stopped eating nothing but rice and Little Debbie's, and we went to beef, chicken, eggs, produce at their, every single meal. And then even having sweet potatoes as their carbohydrate before a training session. They felt fantastic and they've lost this weight. But their parents had no idea that what they were feeding their child wasn't optimal.
When choosing the food that we buy, would it just be a good rule of thumb to like buy produce and meat as close to the source as possible?
Yes.
Because I just wonder, like, going back to the conversation about not all food is created the same. Look, Wendy, I can grow broccoli in my backyard, and when I eat it, it tastes like broccoli. Like, it tastes so good. Or a tomato. I can grow a tomato and I can pick it out of my backyard, and I can literally cut it and put a little salt and pepper on it and eat it like a side with my meal because it's so flavorful. But when I buy from the grocery store, the broccoli tastes like nothing. It tastes like whatever seasoning I put on it. When I buy a tomato, it tastes like daggone water. It tastes like water. Even the organic stuff tastes like water. And so but the problem with this is, and I don't know how you feel about this, it's all conversation around food. It seems like the government really hates small farmers, because the picture that I have in my mind is us feeding each other as a community. Mm-hmm. Like, if we can get our food from our neighbors.
Community gardens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know that person. Like, we can see the passion that they put into what they're growing or what they're producing. We can visit with them and actually, like, look at what they're doing. And that food, I mean, that type of food is it substantially more nutrient dense than the food even the organic food that we're getting off the grocery store shelf?
Well, it depends. It depends on how the soil's treated, too.
Got you. Okay, how it's grown.
Yeah, and so my dad's a crop farmer, and my grandpa on my mother's dad, he had a berry farm in Rochester, Minnesota. He's 94 years old right now, still thriving. But I can't eat strawberries to this day because he gave us the most delicious strawberries.
Strawberries, another big one.
Oh, yeah. And we saw how he cared for the soil. Like, I can speak to my grandpa's farming practices because I literally saw as a child how he prepared, how he tilled it, how he watered, everything he did to prepare that crop. And so delicious and so just colorful, but the crisp and the crunch and the flavors that just explode in your mouth when you have a strawberry versus at the store now, yes, it would literally taste like watery styrofoam, and I'm not going to eat that.
Isn't that wild?
Yes, it is.
I mean, I had a farmer on the podcast just last week, and the government sued him for selling milk.
Raw milk, probably. I'm not
it was raw milk. And like all of the meat that he produces, if it doesn't go through a USDA inspected facility to be processed, he can't sell it to anyone. And in order for him to process any of his animals through a USDA inspected facility, it makes it to where he can't operate profitably as a farmer. I mean, have you thought about this as a nutritionist? Like, what's going on here?
There's a lot of criteria. So I actually worked for the Dairy Council before I started my own private practice. And so we went out to dairy farms. We saw how the cows were cared for, produced. A lot of these cows were getting pedicures and manicures. Like, cows are cared for better than our own veterans. We throw our veterans out on the streets. And these cows were, they're getting cared for so well because they produce a better milk. But if there were certain temperatures that were not met, that milk had to be dumped. So like, you couldn't sell raw milk. And so everybody should know where your food comes from. Go out to farms, go out and do a farm tour, cattle farm, chickens, see where that's coming from. Because you're either going to pay your farmer or your pharmacist. right? I'd rather pay the farmer. But it really does depend on the practices. And that's why with the community, it's so key, because you actually see, you have met the person, you've shaken their hand, you see how they prepare things, where it's grown, the conditions. We don't know when we go to the store. We have no idea where that has come from, where it's sourced from, and how it was prepared. Mm-hmm. So I think that, don't have a victim mentality. We can't just blame the government for everything. But I would agree with you, Chad, that the government has created more challenges, because I believe that it's all about money. It's a lot about profit and control, and that is their biggest focus.
Yeah, if they can control the food, they can control people. And then I think too, you're talking about the profitable aspect to it. If only food that's going to make you sick is available, then that feeds into the whole pharmaceutical industry. Like, is that really happening, or is that a conspiracy theory?
Well, I will say that I'm a registered dietitian. I'm licensed. I am a evidence-based practitioner, but my eyes have been really opened. And what I will say is that, number one, people need to do their research. And I think that you need to use discernment. And I think you can just open your eyes and use some critical thinking skills to see what Bill Gates is doing. We have lab-grown butter, salmon, right? We have things being grown in a petri dish. I'm not eating butter that was produced by carbon. Like, I'm not eating some lab-grown salmon. That's not going to happen. And so I think that that's a problem. And people will say, well, it's better for the environment and there's less water and fertilizer. I mean, that's why I ask, have you ever been to a farm? Because if you've gone to a farm, farmers are some of the most efficient people when it comes to using our resources.
They have to be, or they'll go broke. They won't be farmers.
Yes. So yeah, I would err on the side of, I've been very disappointed by what I've seen, and I'm not eating bugs. I'm going to eat, beef, chicken, and fish and animal protein. And there's more leucine content. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for creatine monohydrate, because you would have to eat 2 to 4 pounds of beef to get the equivalent of 5 grams in a supplement. And it's very expensive right now, right, with beef. And it's very difficult to eat that amount of beef. And so that's why, creatine monohydrate is a supplement that's cost effective and beneficial, that I stand by. We talk about eating whole foods, but creatine monohydrate, there's been, support for cognitive benefits, focus, sleep deprivation, maintaining lean mass, right? It's 3 amino acids, arginine, glycine, methionine. It helps recycle ATP, which is the energy currency for the cell. And so there's not a single person out there that has ever found a shred of evidence that it has adverse effects, especially in children. And so we can't even get a lot of these kids to eat real food, especially high quality protein sources. So I would like to see, more. I would like to see creatine become a essential nutrient.
Yeah, my wife took it all the way through pregnancy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did she know to do that?
She would, if she was sitting in on this conversation right now, she'd be the happiest person in the world. Yeah.
I'll have to connect with her.
This is some of her favorite stuff. Yeah, she took it all the way through pregnancy. She still takes it, daily now after pregnancy. So yeah, and no adverse side effects.
Nope.
And she tries to get me to take it every day, but I have trouble remembering.
I have a solution for you.
Okay.
Right? Environment cues habit. So set the creatine out, mix it into your Greek yogurt the night before. It's also insulin mediated. It requires carbohydrate to be best absorbed. And so if you just mix it into some Greek yogurt with fruit, that's your yogurt parfait for the morning. Now you don't have to worry about remembering. It's in the yogurt.
I don't really have any excuses.
Well, at least you're being honest.
Yeah. And you keep talking about that yogurt and berries, like that has replaced ice cream for me.
Dessert, yeah.
It's and that goes back to what we were talking about, how your palate can change over the course of time to where you can eat. So I do blueberries, blueberries like from my yard.
Awesome.
Blackberries and strawberries like grown locally here. With Greek yogurt, honey from the bees in my backyard, and some crushed walnuts. Now, those did come from the grocery store because I don't have anywhere to source walnuts. But that's
California.
But that, when you eat, like when you've been eating healthy for years, you can eat that at night after dinner, and it's like it's like eating ice cream. It's like a dessert, man. It really is. It's spectacular.
If you blend it up with some milk and a little bit of peanut butter,
I put peanut butter on mine too.
Oh, very
Peanut
good.
butter's another thing though, that not all peanut butters are created equally.
Correct. I'll say I'm a little snobby about peanut butter and almond butter. And a lot of the co-ops where I did my master's in Wisconsin, they had some of the best peanut butter. I mean, I was a broke college kid, but it was like $15, but it was from one of the local farms and it was so good. The way that the almonds and then, the peanuts were roasted and then even the ingredients too. Jif and Skippy are not peanut butter people. Some people don't know.
You got to put that out, dude. Yeah, I mean, you really do. Like, I understand that at this point, but yes. Again, it's I don't even think it's common knowledge. Well, it wasn't common knowledge for me for years and years and years. Like when I grew up, I just thought peanut butter was peanut butter. Why am I going to pay $11 for a jar of peanut butter when I can get a jar of peanut butter for $5? So I guess I can't be critical of people because that was me for years and years. It's funny thinking back on my childhood. I didn't see an avocado until I was in my mid-20s.
Wow. That's amazing.
Like, did not see an avocado. Had never, I remember the first time I saw one, I was in the Navy. I was like, what the crap is that thing? So I have to acknowledge and think back on my own life and the ignorance that I had around, because I made the statement earlier that it seems like to me, eating good food is intuitive. Well, that's the me now.
Yes.
It's all coming back to me now. Like that's the me now. That wasn't always me. I want to talk a little bit about meat. And I want to talk about this too from an angle of like, what do you do? Like, what is the optimal? Do you spend extra money when you buy your meat on grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chicken, all that stuff?
I do. And this is where I say, yes, I'm single. Yes, I don't have children. I run a small business. I spend the majority of my income on good food. And to me, it's worth the investment. So I say all that because people attack me when I say like, oh, I have my grass-fed beef. They'll say, well, you don't have kids. They'll attack me because I don't have their lifestyle. But I've always given solutions for anyone that you can make healthier decisions within your income bracket, whatever that looks like. For me, it's important that if I'm going to help other people and I'm going to go travel and speak and do what I do, I put good food in my body so that I have the energy to do what I do at the highest level. And that's what I say for athletes too, right? You want to be your best. Well, you need to put the best fuel in your body. And so I love eggs, chicken, beef, grass-fed if I'm able. Fruits, vegetables have been very dicey lately, but I primarily, protein and produce is what I do. And I've actually shared, typically my day is 150 grams of protein. I lift 4 to 5 times per week. I take 5 grams of creatine daily. I don't drink alcohol. I drink a lot of water, probably over a gallon. I take a multivitamin inconsistently. It's a kind of like an insurance, but I'm not on any pharmaceuticals. This is what works well for me. And I haven't always been this way. So I actually struggled I did a lot of cardio after college and ran some half marathons, and I had more body fat then. Now I lift and I love it, and I'll run 3 to 5 miles. I know that you are big into endurance. I just know for me, when I would run more, I would need to eat way more, obviously.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, for every hour of activity, you need 30 to 60 grams of carbs. And so I found that my appetite was always ravenous the more cardio that I do. And so this is what works for me is I eat a ton of protein. Sometimes I'll eat almost 200 grams a day because that works very well for me, and I feel energized and I feel like my digestion is optimal. And so for a lot of people, that is a lot of protein, but I'm also strength training. And so for recommendations is journal your nutrition for 3 days. Let's just get stock, right? Collect data. Where are you at? Get some baseline data with labs. Let's take a look at your cholesterol, your triglycerides. What are your hormone levels? Let's look at your sleep. Let's look at your lifestyle. Let's just look at everything collectively. And as a practitioner, that's what I love to do because everyone thinks that it's always just this one thing, but I like to look at everything as a picture because you just don't know what you don't know. And so if we have this full picture of health history, where you're currently at, what your lifestyle, the stress, the demands of your life, what you're eating for 3 to 4 days, we get a rough estimate, and then what your physical activity is like, I can put together a plan for someone that is not perfect, right? There's no perfect plan, but something that can help them upgrade their life so that they can feel better, they can have more energy. And a lot of the adults I've worked with that are over 40, they have way less aches and pains when they increase their antioxidant polyphenol intake coming from pomegranate, blueberries, papaya acts like a natural NSAID. A lot of people don't think to eat some of these exotic fruits. It's a lot of just, Greek yogurt and berries. But I encourage you to find at whatever grocery store you're at, go try something new every single week with your family. And that's a really good way to create a diversity within your nutrition.
Yeah, yeah. Eggs are another big one. I see a huge difference in eggs. Like when you look at the nutrition profile of an egg, have you studied that? Like,
yes.
Is there a difference between the white Eggland's Best and the egg that I get out of my chicken coop?
Your eggs out of your chicken coop are going to be far better.
You can see the difference.
Yes. Well, the egg color too comes from the type of chicken, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, again, the way that the chickens are, cared for, what they're fed, that matters too.
The texture and flavor is different
correct.
too.
Yes, and even the omega profile too.
Okay. So we're not getting ripped off.
You're not getting ripped
by
off.
spending more money on the best possible food.
It's worth it. And if people say, well, I just can't afford that, as always, afford what you can, but you will notice a difference. And you'll find that the amount of time that people spend on screens, they're often buying and shopping for stuff that they don't need. Replace that screen time with taking a walk outside, getting some sunlight, which will energize you. And you can actually, a lot of people can raise their own chickens, and they should do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tremendous difference for sure. Well, that's good to know, because I've always wondered that. Like, is it really worth it to spend this extra money? I mean, I think I based off of flavor profiles, texture, and just how I feel after I eat a higher quality food, I think I just naturally knew, okay, this isn't a scam. Like, I am getting something better here. But to be able to just get confirmation on that, I think feels good to me, because, I mean, my wife and I, just for us, we probably spend $500 a week on food.
Yeah, that's standard.
Yeah.
When you're eating well.
But we're trying, and we're supplementing a lot of what we eat off of what we grow and produce ourselves. So this is $500 a month on food, and we're supplementing that with things, we don't buy eggs. We don't buy, most of our berries are grown. Like, so, sometimes that stings, and you think, is it really worth it? When I'm buying my chicken and I can buy a pound of chicken for $3 or $15, you think, is it really worth it? So it's good to get confirmation on that.
Yeah. And I always ask the question too, well, where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your time? People buy a lot of stupid stuff, right? They seriously,
I'm
shopping
one of
online.
them. Yeah.
And I bought stupid stuff too. Absolutely. But it's like, if you actually audit what you're buying, you can cut back in certain areas, right? That you have more funds to throw at more beef and eggs and things that are locally grown. And I think that a lot of people, they underestimate the impact that proper nutrition and drinking water. Everybody's got to have some fancy Starbucks drink in their hand now, which is very overpriced. If you like that, fine. But then don't complain to me that you don't have money to buy good beef.
Do you drink tap water?
No. I live in the big city of Dallas.
Okay.
So
what do you do for your water?
I have to buy it. I have to go get it. Spring water. I grew up with well water. It's delicious. And so I'm kind of a water snob. I'll not drink water if it's not good water, because I don't want to get sick.
And water's more expensive than gasoline.
Yeah.
Good water, if you price it out by the gallon, it's pretty wild. Like good spring water.
You're not wrong. I don't even think about it, because I'm buying it all the time. I could look at my budget. I'll report back how much I spend on water versus my gas.
Yeah. On water, I think, man, it's you keep bringing it up because it is just as critical as the food that we're cooking and chewing up and eating. But I think it fits into the same category. Like, all water is not created equally either.
God, no.
And I personally, I know where a spring is, like an artesian spring that flows out of the mountain. And I haul water jugs in once a week into that spring and fill water jugs out of that unfiltered groundwater. And that's what we drink, cook with, make coffee with, because I think it matters. I think it matters that much. Like I won't even do bottled water because it's sitting in plastic, and like that bothers me. Like to know how long has that water been sitting in that plastic bottle, even though it's natural spring water. By the way, it's been that natural spring water has been treated probably with UV light to make sure that it, doesn't have whatever in it. I don't know if that's good or bad, but like, I just feel better about drinking this water that comes straight out of the earth. And I'm not afraid to drink it either. I think a lot of people are afraid to drink it.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just articulating how amazing that would be to have access to that. You're a very blessed man.
You know that
I wouldn't trust drinking out of the water systems around Dallas.
Yeah. Polluted. So those springs, there are more of those springs out there. Like there's 3 in this area that anyone from the public can go to. It's just the effort it takes.
But it's worth it.
It's worth it, man. It is. Like, and this water that I'm drinking, it's also it's unfiltered, untreated. So like if I don't drink that water within a week, it will start to mold in the container that it's in. That's wild, right? Because
it is wild.
This water can sit in this bottle for who knows how many years, and nothing's going to happen. You're going to open it up. It's not going to smell. There's not going to be any mold. I have it in stainless steel containers, and if I don't drink it within probably 2 weeks, I open it up, and there's something in it that will start to mold.
Well, it's minerals.
I guess that's what it is, yeah.
Shelf life. That's what Dasani, some of these waters at the airports, it's just horrific.
Yeah.
You're phenomenal. I love everything you're sharing. I'm learning a lot from you, too. I didn't trying to think, the local creek might have been safe. We drank water out of it.
Well, you can't do it out of a creek.
Not now. Yeah, definitely not now. But back then, maybe.
You have to find these are springs that are like, you'll see a lot of times if you drive through the mountains in North Georgia, you'll see them. It's just a PVC pipe stuck in the side of the mountain that some redneck found this spring, and he sticks a PVC pipe in the side of the mountain, and then the water just flows right out of it's just a little section of pipe, and it's just to direct the flow of the water so that you can collect it.
Do you have directions? I will be here for like another 24 hours, so.
Oh, yeah.
So I would go.
Yeah, I actually have to go to the spring today.
Oh.
Yeah, I have to go refill my water jugs today. But I don't know, man. I'm just like, I want people to be encouraged, like, you don't have to drink the crap water. Like if you do enough research, you can, and maybe the spring that I go to, there are people that I meet while I'm there, which is another amazing experience, because what happens at the well, when you're at the spring collecting water, and the other people who are like you, who care enough about what they're putting in their body, that I run into people at that spring that drive 2 hours to come and collect water from that spring. And what happens there? We talk to each other. Like this weird thing happens where we're all standing around this spring that God has provided that just flows continuously. And we can drink water straight out of the earth. And then we become humans again when we gather around it to collect our water. And we start talking about health. And we start talking about our lives. And so it's like, there's so much benefit to it, man, to like going back, like searching out ways to go back to that.
Back to the basics, foraging for our food and water like we used to do.
And it still exists. You can still do it.
I love hearing that.
It's just the convenience, man. You hit it earlier. Convenience is killing us, man.
It is. I'm just picturing this because I've lived in, big cities, being a sports dietitian and doing what I'm doing. I feel like if you just told that to somebody living around Dallas, and I know I'm not knocking Dallas, I'm just saying they would just look like, how do you survive?
Yeah.
Because you explain to people about the basics, and they get their food prepared. A lot of the families I've worked with too, they have a private chef. And so they have no concept of what you just, illustrated, which I think is amazing, because you feel better too when you've worked for it and you've kind of sweat for it and you've labored for it. But that is the lost art though of teaching too. It actually goes back to your question earlier of like, how have we kind of lost our way? And it's because we've not had people to also teach us things. Like my grandmother taught, how to cook and how to do a lot of these things. Parents now may not be teaching their kids how to cook. So then who is going to teach them?
Yeah.
So you need to share this with everyone.
This is all why I wanted to have this conversation today, is just to hopefully inspire people that there are ways. And guess what? That water that I collected doesn't cost me a dime. That's amazing. I can literally collect 1,000 gallons of it
Don't
today.
tell the government that.
Yeah. Well, that's true. They would probably shut it down. It doesn't.
They will. They'll come in.
Yeah. It doesn't cost me a dime.
Where's your permit for this?
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's another benefit of living, not living in a big city too, though. Because who knows if that spring existed in a big city, maybe it would be too polluted to drink out of.
Sadly, I don't think that people would care for it or respect it enough, because people are very fast paced, very selfish, and everybody's in a hurry to go nowhere, in my opinion. We're all going to die someday too. One thing, so Paul Saladino is a man I'm sure you're familiar. I don't know if you should have him as a guest.
I've heard the name.
But he's brought, I have followed him for a long time, and I have called him out vocally. I've called him a grifter, because he started out as a vegan, and then he went to carnivore, and then he went to carnivore plus fruit, and then now he's talking about adding in potatoes and root vegetables, and it's like, I've been telling people to eat this way for decades, man.
Yeah, and you act like you just discovered something new.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he wrote a book, and again, I'm not here to tell people how to make a living. We all got to make money, but you can't prey on people's desperations, because there are people out there with autoimmune diseases. They've tried everything, pharmaceuticals, they've tried special diets that haven't worked. And it's just terrifying that certain people, they create so much fear of, well, you can't drink out of that plastic bottle this one time. You're going to die. You're going to get microplastics, and the world is going to fall apart, and people just panic. And so I've had consults with people, Chad, that have come to me and they've said, all of these influencers and Paul Saladino said this, and these people are just terrified of just going outside, right? And there's Brian Johnson, that a really unfortunate situation. He's been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. But I do believe also that people can create their own disease with fear. You raise your blood pressure when you're constantly stressing. And so I do caution people that control your controllables. But remember, we are all going to die. We're all going to age. We cannot, change that. And I think a lot of people fearmonger in the food fitness space. And so I just want to preface too, people that are listening, you can't be perfect, but do what you can. If you have access to grow your own food, absolutely get your own water. But remember that you can't cheat death, and you shouldn't want to. I mean, I know.
No, do these things because it will make your life better.
Yes.
Don't do these things because of anxiety
and
you
fear.
feel.
Yes.
Or fear that you feel. Do these things because it will make your life better.
Yes.
That's why you want to do these. You talk, going back to the convenience thing, convenience is killing us. Another thing a huge thing that you touched on earlier when you talked about when I go and I haul those heavy jugs in to collect that water, how much more connected with that water am I? Throughout the week when I'm drinking that water, I don't spill a drop. I don't pour any of that water down the sink. That water is used and consumed down to the very drop because I'm connected to it, because I had to labor for it. I had to go and get it. And that's another huge thing that I think people should think about in terms of convenience is we've lost a connection with our food. When you grow a bell pepper, not only does it taste better, but you are not going to eat half of that bell pepper and throw the other half in the fridge and let it go bad. Because you grew that thing and you labored for that fruit from a seed and you nurtured it in your yard and you watched it grow and you harvested that thing. And that's a special thing to you. You're connected with that dang bell pepper. And when you sit down to eat it, you're going to eat the whole darn thing. We've lost that, I think, Wendi. We really have. We throw so much food away. Why do we throw so much dang food away? Because
wasteful.
We're not connected to it. It means nothing to us.
You're making me think. I agree with you. There's a lot of people though also that they don't appreciate it. And even the kids though, I've helped kids. One way with picky eating too, if you actually help the kids prepare it, they're more likely to eat it.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
That's the spirit of what I'm getting at. We take it for granted.
But there have been people though that have done all of that And community gardens, like I've worked with some groups and they just didn't care. And I was like, oh my gosh, some people just don't care.
Well, they're probably, you're talking about they're basically in a community garden, they're letting the food basically rot on the vine. They're not harvesting it and using it the way they ought to use it.
Somebody else is feeding them, is what I'm saying.
So they're choosing convenience.
Right, yes.
They're choosing, that's the thing. They're just choosing convenience. Yeah. It's the same with our meat. Dude, if you raise a chicken and then you have to kill that animal, like you raise it from a little chick, you feed it, you move it, you care for it, and then you have to kill it and you have to process it. Like when you eat that chicken breast, there ain't gonna be nothing, there ain't gonna be no leftovers. Because you have so much more respect for that food, man, and appreciation for that food. And convenience has killed all of that. And even though we can go back to that, we're still choosing convenience. That's how powerful convenience is. There's something in human nature that chooses that convenience, I guess, like some bent.
Our right brain is the lazy brain. It doesn't want to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're right. And I think my dad and brother have gone elk hunting, and when they kill that elk, they bring it back and you eat everything.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't kill it, but I still appreciate it because they killed it.
Yep.
You're not wrong.
I just think there's something there, man.
What's the solution then? That's always my next question is, how do we fix it?
Yeah, the solution for me personally, what am I doing to solve this problem for myself? That's the question. All right. First of all, I have had to make responsible financial decisions for many, many years to set me up in a place where I can buy a piece of land. And then I have to make the conscious decision, all right, now I'm going to have to say no to some things professionally and make the conscious decision to slow down so that I can create time to reconnect with my food. Like to not only develop skills to be able to grow this stuff and nurture these animals, but also have the time to do so and commit myself to it. Like make the effort. Like for me, that's the solution. Like it's the solution is sacrifice, essentially. Mm-hmm. If you could sum it up in one word, the solution is sacrifice. Even going back to the conversation, if you don't want to go to this extreme, if you're saying this is just way too extreme for me right now, I'm not going to learn how to grow food. I'm not going to learn how animal husbandry. I'm not going to learn, like, this is too extreme. It even goes back to the conversation around buying the best quality food that you can buy if you're not going to do any of this. The solution, it's going to take sacrifice for you to do that because maybe you can't buy the newest pair of AI glasses.
Ridiculous.
For however many hundreds of bucks because you got to spend money on buying higher quality food. The solution is sacrifice, I think, if you summed it up in one word.
I'd add discipline too. Discipline equals freedom. I think that a lot of people, if you're doing too much, you don't have time. But I think we may get to a point, I can't predict the future, but if we get to a point where fruits and veggies are not safe to get from the grocery store, you have no choice other than to discipline yourself and your family to go back to the basics of growing your own food and then learning how to cook it yourself because you're not going to restaurants. It's too expensive. And also the people preparing it are not clean. They're not washing their hands. That's why a lot of people are getting sick.
Yeah, man.
It's a good incentive to cook at home.
Yeah, it is. We're going to talk about cooking in a little bit. I want to talk about fat real quick.
Yeah.
Because fat is something that over my lifetime, I've seen it get demonized and everything go to no fat or low fat. And then I've seen it come back to where like eat all the fat you can. And I mean, the question I have is when I sit down to eat my grass-fed ribeye steak in the evening that I've spent literally 3 hours of my day cooking this steak. I've smoked it for, I've got it out. I've prepared it. I've smoked it on my smoker for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Then I take it and I move it to the flat top grill where I sear it on both sides. Going back to cooking, this is a sacrifice that I make to cook this steak 3 hours I've got into this meal right here. When I sit down to eat that ribeye steak, man, and it's got fat, marbled all through it, do I just cut that thing up and eat all of that? Or do I cut the fat out of it and just eat the fleshy part of it?
Lord, no. Do not cut out the fat and throw it away. Some people do that. I think it always depends, right? Any good practitioner is going to say it depends on the context, because how do I know you weren't crushing ribeyes all day? And I'd say that's probably a little bit much for the day total. So context is always key, but I'm not against fat. We need a certain amount of fat in our diet to be healthy for hormone health and even to have healthy cholesterol. Fat is flavor. Fat provides us nutrients. It's the imbalance of the omega-6 and the omega-3s that are a problem. And so saturated fat, the guidelines are that we're supposed to consume less than 7% of our total calories coming from saturated fat. And so it's really interesting. The new guidelines were a huge emphasis on protein. And so a lot of dietitians were angry because it's so confusing now. And you're telling people to eat more protein, but then it's more saturated fat. And so just for clarity, fat is not bad. I think that it's the amount that you consume and then the type of fat that matters. So fat coming from a ribeye, fat coming from butter, fat coming from salmon, right? All very different than some of the lard, the other sources of fat that are either altered, ultra processed. Obviously, trans fats have been banned, but I think that there's typically an overconsumption for a lot of folks with saturated fat. And so I would like to see more, extra virgin olive oil added just to balance it out. But you should not throw out the fat because that's also nutrients in its calories. I would say that buy a cut of meat that is more in alignment with your goals, whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. But you're a very healthy guy. You are very active. You're not someone that I would be concerned about an excess of saturated fat. Now, Joe Public that sits at a desk all day and eats and just is sedentary, I would have a problem with him just because it's too many calories.
When I eat that fat, I feel so good.
And satiated because fat fills us up.
Dude, Wendi, if I can eat for dinner a ribeye steak and a sweet potato.
Oof, that sounds good.
I'm done for the evening.
There's some green beans in there. You got to have a little bit of
I'm back. Yeah.
It's just a recommendation.
If my wife's in the kitchen, she'll do the green beans. But dude, if I can eat a ribeye steak and a sweet potato, I'm good. I'm done for the evening. I don't know what it is about that meal.
It's very satiating. I mean, you're higher fat, right? You're going to be more satisfied.
I even put butter in my coffee.
That's really,
is that crazy?
It's not. It was really popular when I was doing my master's in 2015. We had a lot of people presenting on it in case studies. Fat fills us up. So it's not a surprise when people are like, well, I'm doing keto and I'm never hungry. Yeah, because you literally ate 700 calories for breakfast of fat. So you're very full. And fat takes longer to digest. And even, from an athletic performance standpoint, a lot of people, they say that they can run with fat. Fat is what fuels them. They're metabolically adapted to
That's
fat.
A big thing in ultra running now.
It is. And you can prime the body and you can become fat adapted, but it takes a lot of training. But if we go back to what the science says, though, we can produce more ATP at a faster rate, we can produce more ATP at a quicker rate versus fat. It's going to be less. So I probably said that wrong. I feel like I need to back up. It's more efficient for carbohydrate because we can break it down a lot faster than fat, right? Fat takes longer. And so if you're running distance, right, you're not running sprints or, an 800, then yeah, you can do that. But for most sprinters and quick bursts of energy, you're going to want to have carbohydrate. But carbs are also still king for endurance sport. And so I'd say both matter. And I think for a lot of people that are running with peanut butter and jellies and they're doing avocado, there's a lot of potassium in avocado too, but you can train your gut to accept that fuel and break it down. But a lot of people, right, may not feel good if they just started out feeding their body a bunch of fat and then went and ran 20 miles. I think they would struggle and they would be in pain.
So it takes time.
It does. You can train the gut to accept those nutrients.
What about coconut oil? Is that
medium chain triglyceride? Yeah, it
that's
actually
good
lowers.
Stuff?
Yeah, it lowers insulin levels. I'm 100% for it.
Okay. I want to get into the fermented food, understanding what that does to our body too. We have now incorporated almost on a daily basis in our house kimchi.
Yeah, kimchi's great.
So it's my understanding that fermented food used to be a huge part of the human diet because it was one of the best ways to preserve food is by fermenting it. That's my understanding. Is that right?
Correct. Yogurt lasts longer too. It's a longer shelf life because of the fermentation process.
Okay.
Yes.
So what has moved us away from fermented food? Is it the refrigerator? Like other better ways to store food? Like,
I think it's a combination of things. A lot of people don't like kimchi, which is crazy. I mean, it's a little spicy, and I think that people's palates have also changed and evolved with eating less whole foods. But there's actually a lot of local kimchi farmers where I'm from in Minnesota, probably less now, but people would just eat it up. Local kimchi is fantastic, and it feeds your good gut bugs.
You could make it.
And you can make it at home too, but I love, going to a kimchi farmer. I mean, it's already taken care of time, right? But yeah, the fermented foods, I mean, sauerkraut, same thing. A lot of people don't want to eat that. They're like, oh, it's disgusting, but it's really good for your gut health. And putting it in your eggs would be a good recommendation. I do that often. Put a little bit of sauerkraut, some kimchi in my eggs. Absolutely delicious.
I've never tried that.
You should try it. But I believe that it's a palate thing because a lot of student athletes and even families I've worked with, they're like, oh, that just has such a weird vinegar, acidic flavor. But I think that a lot of people need to try it and prepare it with the right dishes. That's why I love eggs. Mash in some sweet potato, some rice cauliflower, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and some avocado on top. It's really, really good.
So with the fermented foods, is that my understanding is it's actually alive? Like there's something, what is going into your gut, helping your gut?
So it's helping feed the gut bugs, and it's increasing the amount.
And what does that do for your overall health?
Our gut is like our second brain. And so it helps with inflammation. It helps with mental clarity, focus, concentration.
Dang.
And that's why when I talked about like the fear mongering, like a lot of my clients they physically get stomach aches when they worry so much about things, right? You've had a stomach ache when you've been worried. A lot of people feel a lot of digestive issues when they're anxious, worried, they're fear mongering themselves with a lot of things. And so I think too, with antibiotics, a lot of people are on those. And so when you introduce kimchi or sauerkraut or kefir, that's going to help improve the gut microbiota.
And overall help, like your mental clarity and overall health. You said your gut is your second brain. Well, it made me think when you're standing on when you're getting ready to do a big race and you're all nervous about it, what do? You end up having to run to the bathroom and take a massive dump. But it's like but it ties to what you said. It's like your gut in some way is thinking.
Stomach acid is increased, gut motility increases.
Yeah.
That's why there was a woman that was like, Wendi, every time I go to TJ Maxx, and I'm using this because she just is a beautiful woman, but every time I go to TJ Maxx, I have to go number 2, and it's so bad. And I have to run because she's excited. She's excited about the shopping and what she's going to find. And that's the same, for a race story or anywhere else. Your stomach acid, everything is increasing. The gut motility, everything moves. And so that's why you're experiencing that. And it's funny because it hits people in different spaces. Mm-hmm. And that's why what you eat is so important. And before you go for a long run or before you go get on a stage, I mean, there's just certain foods, right, that we can eat that can influence the outcome.
Yeah. I just think it's a great example of like how connected your gut is with what's happening, even with your mind.
Yes.
Because like your mind knows you're about to do this really difficult physical thing, and your gut is so connected with your mind that it reacts in a way that better prepares you to go and do that activity, whatever it is. And I've just never connected all that.
Ghrelin and leptin, for a lot of people that overeat, they think that they, I have a bigger appetite genetically. There is some data to support that, but a lot of people don't eat enough satiating foods, and that's why ghrelin and leptin aren't functioning properly. You don't know what satiety is because you don't eat enough protein. You also eat too quick. I think a lot of people, the distractions when they're eating, everyone eats in front of a screen, a TV, YouTube. People don't sit down and talk about community. When was the last time, the average American family sat down uninterrupted for 25 minutes at the dinner table? I don't think a single family could say, yeah, we've done that 3 times this week.
Yeah. You can see that too when you, I know a lot of the older people that I'm in relationship with, part of my family or friend group or whatever, if we sit down to have dinner together, they eat slower than I eat. And I've always wondered, like, oh, well, maybe that's just because they're old, but it's probably actually because they just aren't in as big a hurry as I'm in.
Probably. There's also everything slows down too. When you're older, you also get full more quickly. Your appetite declines. But the satiety matters. I mean, when you eat slower, you also get more full faster as well.
Have you ever heard that you're not supposed to drink water while you eat? Is there something to that?
It helps you actually consume the entire meal because water fills you up. It's a volume thing. And so our stomach really isn't that big. You can learn a lot about just nutrition through the life cycle, like my, maternity nutrition courses and, geriatric, like the older adults that are eating less protein, which they need to be eating more protein because they're experiencing sarcopenia on a higher level. And they need obviously to strength train for weight bearing to obviously bone and muscle. But it's really sad. We start out as infants in diapers and then we end up, older in diapers. But how you, summarizing everything we're talking about too, how you eat does influence how you live in your 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Certainly. I want to talk about some of these fad diets. Well, they pop up all the time. I don't even know how many of them have existed in my lifetime.
They're the worst.
But I heard you say something on a different show that you were on, and you were talking about how when you stop eating meat, like I forget what you said. Changes about like something actually, like maybe you were talking about your teeth or your bone density or something actually changes about the structure of your body, like when you stop eating meat and you just eat vegetables. I'll have to go back and listen to it and see exactly what you referenced.
I did a show, the Wendi Irlbeck show. I started a podcast and I talked about doing the Daniel fast and I did nothing but vegetables.
Well, no, you were a guest on a show and these guys were hockey coaches.
Okay, yes.
So they were interviewing you. But I mean, veganism to me, when I look at the whole vegan, that was huge.
Oh, Topher, yeah, I recall that podcast. That was 3 years ago. Wow.
Like the vegan thing, but I mean, that was huge. I think people are finally starting to come out of it.
They are. That's why I had brought up like a few of the physicians that were vegans and then they went carnivore and now they're like, nope, we definitely need, some plants in there too. But it does change the structure of your teeth. They become more dull. They're no longer like sharp canines. Mm-hmm. And the Lord designed us, right, to be able to tear through meat. We didn't have utensils.
Is it healthy to be a vegan?
God, no.
Okay.
I mean, higher risk of nutrient deficiencies, depression, B vitamins, stress fractures, iron. If you're an endurance athlete too, I mean, pretty darn important to have red blood cells, right, that are receiving oxygen. I mean, from a recovery standpoint too, your hair, nails, skin needs meat. And you're pale. A lot of these vegans and vegetarians, they just don't know what they don't know. They often think, well, I'm doing a better thing for the environment by not eating animals. But what you'll realize is that you're drastically altering your gut microbiota by not consuming meat.
People are going to, I mean, so there are, in the ultra running community, there are multiple named ultra runners who their entire identity is built off of being a vegetarian. Like that's their whole identity.
They always tell you, I know people you'll definitely know if they're doing a vegan or if they're carnivore. What I always tell people is, how is that working for you? Right? I ask the questions. How are you feeling? What's your recovery like? Have you been injured? Well, yeah, I've been injured a lot, like the most injured I've ever been. Well, what did you change? Well, I cut meat out. And you just allow them to connect the dots.
So basically, if you were going to be vegan or vegan and vegetarian are different. Yes. They can eat different things. So I guess we'll go to vegetarian. I have friends who are vegetarian and they swear by it. They think that they're the most healthy thing. They're going to live till they're 100 years old and all this because they only eat vegetables. But I mean, realistically, would you have to supplement some things?
You can be sick. Context is key. And I have some vegan articles on my website where I talk about how to fuel as a, vegan student athlete. So it's possible, but again, people are unwilling to cook their own food. It's very inconvenient for people to actually, if you were a vegetarian or a vegan, you have to prepare more meals in advance to get enough protein, to get enough nutrients.
But you can.
That's what I'm saying. You can if you have properly planned, but most people are not going to properly plan. And so also context, if you're a vegetarian, sure, maybe you eat a little bit of fish here or there, maybe some eggs, maybe you don't eat dairy. Obviously, there's a surplus of different varieties. But let's just go back to what the science says. Leucine is the number one driver for muscle protein synthesis, right? And plant protein is significantly less less leucine in plants, right, versus animals.
So it's not the same.
No, it's not the same protein. That's why you can't compare a cup of almond milk to a cup of cow's milk, because you're getting far less leucine in that almond milk, which is not even real milk. It's nut juice, which is a disgrace in itself. But it's the leucine content. So even the plant proteins that are out there too, that are more at risk for having heavy metals in them, I tell people you'd have to consume 2.5 times as much of that versus the grass-fed whey protein to get the benefits. And so if you want to spend more money, it's also not as digestive friendly. Like, by all means, if you feel like you're thriving, if your friends think that they're thriving, great, but the data doesn't support that you thrive on a vegan or vegetarian diet.
While we're on eating plants, are there really things in some plants that are like poisonous to you? Like kale, like
sorry, love. I get this a lot. The anti-nutrients, right?
Yeah,
like for us.
Like, don't plants produce things naturally so that like the deer won't eat them? And because like if I go and I eat a massive kale salad, it upsets my stomach. Like, what's in these plants? And I've even nightshades.
Yes.
Like, you're not supposed to eat nightshades when you're breastfeeding.
Yes.
What's your perspective on that?
Very nuanced, but just for context, some people have more gas bloating with certain vegetables. I also think that the fiber matters and like breaking it down. And so you need to thoroughly cook your kale. I would never eat kale raw. Very, very, I'm just laughing because you're probably pretty gassy and unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's in it? What's causing that?
A lot of it is the fiber.
Okay.
And then obviously too, like sulforaphane and broccoli, like cruciferous vegetables. And a lot of people just have challenges breaking them down. And if your gut lining is already compromised, the microvilli in our gut too, a lot of times that will just create a lot of bloating, and then people will experience some of the digestive issues. But if you thoroughly cook, like lectins, right, that a lot of people complain about in beans, if you thoroughly cook it, you'll cook out the lectins, and it will be easier for you to digest, break it down, and then access those nutrients. And so I think that, the context is key, because gut health, there's so much we don't know about it. It's very nuanced. I've changed my mind about it over the years, because I've had clients that, a lot of them that are older and struggling with autoimmune, we've actually significantly reduced vegetables, and we've just done some fruits and then a lot of, animal protein. They have way less bloating, way less gas. They feel better. And so the gut lining changes over the years too. And so I just think for people listening, that nutrition is not black or white. And just because I say, or reference something, you need to go out. Your body is yours, and you need to get in tune with it and understand what foods make you feel great and what foods make you feel not so great.
That's
and
good.
I think that that's just a really helpful way, because the data supports eating more plants, reduces risk of disease and illness. But I've had a lot of clients that have just felt better and they perform better, and, just reducing some of the fiber intake. So
that's been my experience. Yeah. I mean, I still do eat vegetables, but, if I had to pick whether or not I wanted to be a vegetarian or a carnivore, I would be a carnivore like 100x before I would be a vegetarian. Just because
I could never give up steak.
Yeah, I couldn't either. and one time, me and my wife, when we were young, we didn't know that you had to soak raw, like hard beans.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we just got the beans, poured them out of the bean bag into the dang pot, cooked them until they they were soft, and we just ate a massive serving of these beans, and it wrecked us.
I'm not surprised.
It wrecked us for like 3 days, man.
Chickpeas. Yeah.
These dang plants are poison.
I would say that they're poison, but I would say that the anti-nutrients, read the data, go, engross yourself in the data. But at the end of the day, experiment with your body. If you don't feel great, you're gassy, you're bloating, that's an issue. But I would say also the dose and frequency matter. And so you can introduce some of these higher fiber vegetables, thoroughly cooking, but in smaller amounts, which helps you then better accept it from a digestive standpoint.
What is the fiber doing?
What do you mean?
Like what if fiber is important?
Yes.
What is it doing in your body? Why is it important?
Well, for type 2 diabetics especially, it helps lower the response for blood sugar. So insulin is not being such a large hit, and then the crash, because that's actually what leads to a lot of people having metabolic syndrome and issues. And so the fiber helps slow that response, and it fills you up. It produces satiety. It also lowers cholesterol. And so we need to have at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. And a lot of people don't actually eat their 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day. And so if we did that, we would likely meet our fiber needs. And a lot of people would actually be at a lower risk for colon cancer.
I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that like broccoli like scrubs out your intestines and prevents colon cancer. But I
would say it decreases your risk for colon cancer, but colon cancer, a lot of cancers is, genetic, and then environmental conditions, alcohol. A lot of these people, we didn't really talk about alcohol, but alcohol is a literal toxin.
Oh yeah, I don't even know why we need to talk about it.
I know, but some people do.
You're literally pouring poison into your body. Like, that's why you get drunk. You're poisoning yourself.
It's true, but that's also what compromises gut health too. So it's just things like that. A lot of people are demonizing fruits and veggies, and I'm like, sir, you literally crush vodka and wine weekly. That's the bigger problem. It's not your broccoli intake.
Well, let's go on the other end of the spectrum on these fad diets. So let's talk about the carnivore thing. So why is that not healthy? It seems like an outstanding, if I could just eat steak every meal, like ribeye every meal, I would love that. It's my favorite food. But like, why is that unhealthy? Because, and I'm asking this because people swear by it.
I know.
Like, I know a dude in town that like lost 300 pounds because all he did was eat meat and animal products. That's it. He swears by it. Now he looks like a walking zombie. But
well, okay. So context, what was he eating before? We don't know if he was eating a bunch of fast food, a bunch of ultra processed foods, and then now all of a sudden he's only eating meat. Well, yeah, he cut out an abundance of garbage. And so I think for a lot of carnivores, a lot of them, from what I've seen, Sean Baker has come for me because I recommend chocolate milk to student athletes, but he and I have had some interesting exchanges.
The SEAL team, you want to know what the SEAL team's recommended for post-workout? Chocolate milk.
The data, great. I love
dietitians that are in charge of the entire SEAL teams recommend chocolate milk for a post-workout.
Yeah, because it has the optimal 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio, scientifically proven to optimize recovery, and it has minerals. And so to answer your question, I've changed my mind a little bit with carnivore. Now, I'm not recommending it. I'm not saying it's the healthiest diet, because I think that the balanced way with fruits, vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats, I'm all about that. More the Mediterranean style, that, plenty of plants, but also plenty of protein. But your friend that lost all this weight, just because he lost a lot of weight, I don't know what his labs look like. What is his cholesterol? What are his triglycerides? Now, the carnivore people love to tell you about their ApoB. They love to share the labs, and I love it. I love to see the labs. And I've reviewed a lot of people that have made lifestyle changes when they went to carnivore. They didn't just change the way that they ate. They started exercising more. They started drinking more water. They started getting more sleep. They made a lot of changes. And so I think that there's nuances to it that people ignore. And if we look at the data, people that are doing carnivore for autoimmune diseases, there's a lot of great benefits, and it's reduced their inflammation, because we can actually measure that C-reactive protein, right? We can see that come down because a lot of people were eating so poorly before. Or
they were eating those poisonous plants.
Or that. I will say we'll have to have more conversations about that. But, with carnivore, I'm not saying it's healthy, but I'm not discouraging people from doing it. Again, I'm an open mind when it comes to doing what works well for you, but get your labs done, look at your body composition, because just because you lost weight, well, I want to know how much visceral fat do you have, right? how much fat are you carrying around your organs? Subcutaneous fat. I want to see a DEXA scan. I want to see labs. I want to see DEXA. I want to do, I want to check out physical exam. I want to see your skin. These things matter because a lot of people are doing carnivore. And I brought up Paul Saladino because he actually said he felt like crap and his energy levels were tanking because he was also surfing and running. And when you're an endurance athlete, at some point, it just stops being optimal because you need carbohydrates.
Yep.
And so I think that a mix of carnivore and fruit would actually be the way to go for a lot of folks. But I'm not going to say that, carnivore is bad for your, cholesterol levels, because I believe that ultra processed foods and excess sugar, refined sugars, actually raises your cholesterol far more than, lean animal proteins. A lot of people that do carnivore, they're actually picking really good protein sources. Granted, some do a lot of butter, but I will also go back to, you don't want to have an imbalance of your omega-3s and omega-6s. That's where you get inflammation and a higher risk of disease.
Gotcha.
But
carnivore is a better option than vegetarian.
Absolutely. I couldn't do vegan. I would do carnivore. I think right now, actually, I think a lot of people are dabbling, and you talk about fad diets. I think that for some people, they're choosing their diet to be their God, right?
Yes, it's their identity. Yeah, what you eat is your entire identity. Yeah, I see that all the time, man.
Isn't it kind of exhausting sometimes where you just want to tell people to go touch grass?
Yeah, it's wild. It really is wild. Yeah, and I see that mostly connected to these fad diets or these things that pop up.
The last thing I want to say about the carnivore too is just, vitamin C, obviously micronutrients, some of the deficiencies, obviously meat, very high in B vitamins, but you're still not getting that vitamin C from, bell peppers, really great source of vitamin C, which is good for immune health.
Really random question before we move on. Is there a food that you could just eat that food and survive off of and be healthy? Eggs for real?
Yes, because you're getting protein. It's the highest bioavailability. And then obviously choline for neurotransmitter production. There's a little bit of fat. And so I go with eggs because you actually have the opportunity to meet all of your nutritional needs.
Eggs were demonized for a while too.
Not by this dietitian.
Yeah, well, by just the culture. Like, you shouldn't be eating the yolk of the egg.
That's
like, I remember that when I was growing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Causation versus correlation. That's where all the nutrients are. A lot of people throw away the yolk, and then they are confused as to why they're also hungry 5 seconds later.
Yeah. Who in the world would just want to eat an egg white?
Well,
that's just crazy to me.
If you add egg white to the egg yolks, if you're trying to do body composition, you're doing a bodybuilding show, you want to add a little bit more protein without the calories for some people.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree.
I get excited when I crack an egg and it has 2 yolks.
Well, your chickens?
Yeah.
They magic chickens?
They do. Yeah. They lay double yolked eggs every now and then. Yeah.
You're a blessed man.
Yeah. I get excited when I get one. All right. I do want to talk about supplements. Like, all things supplements. I guess we should start with vitamin supplements. Like, you said you take a multivitamin
infrequently.
Infrequently. So is supplementing vitamins, whether it's a multivitamin or whatever, like, if you're eating a well-balanced, optimal diet full of good ingredients and high-quality food, whole food, is vitamins a scam?
I would say that the multivitamins typically are a scam. I wouldn't waste my money on them. The five supplements that I would invest in that are worth it: creatine monohydrate, magnesium, vitamin D3, zinc. Are these a surprise to you?
No.
Yeah, magnesium before bed actually helps with muscle relaxation and contraction. And then the 5th is typically a fish oil, only because for a lot of people, in my experience as a dietitian, most people are not getting enough omega-3s. They're not eating salmon. They're not eating fish. So that's what I've seen the highest need for, those 5 supplements. And then obviously there's the nuances, but vitamin D3, 2/3 of the world's population was vitamin D deficient when I was studying it in my master's. And so higher vitamin D is also associated with less risk for stress fractures, less depression, better mood. And it's so cool. Every single cell in our body has a VD-out receptor. And so vitamin D3 is not talked about enough, in my opinion.
We're giving that to our son. We've been giving that to him since he was born.
Good. How many IUs?
I don't know. With like one bottle, we give him 5 drops. The other bottle, we give him 6 drops. My wife measured it out.
Oh, yeah, she probably knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like the Institute of Medicine and then the Endocrine Society, they have different recommendations, whether it's 600 IUs or 2,000 IUs. But it's fat soluble. So obviously making sure that he has a fat source with it, whether that be avocado, peanut butter, sage.
He's just getting breast milk right now.
He's 6 months old?
No, he's 9 weeks old.
Oh, he's 9 weeks. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you look very well rested though for a 9 weeks.
Yeah, it's I'm highly experienced in sleep deprivation.
Creatine can help with that though.
Yeah, I know. So those vitamins you recommended aren't a surprise to me because my wife takes every single one of those.
Your wife is
she doesn't take a multivitamin. She buys every one of those individually. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but she just recently called our doctor friend and got a prescription for her fish oil.
Yes.
Because it's less likely to contain heavy metals or something?
Yes. Yes. And same thing with vitamin D, like a high dose vitamin D. You can get a prescription for it. Always test, don't guess. But 100%, I mean, most supplements too, there's the risk of cross-contamination. That's why you always want to choose a third-party tested, NSF, informed choice approved, that it's undergone the rigorous testing. Because I could produce something in the back of this room and then sell it on the market. And until people can prove that it does harm, it will remain for sale. And so just because you buy a supplement off of Amazon, you want to make sure, just like our food, responsibly sourced supplements. And so Mementos is a brand. I like their, grass-fed whey protein. Whey protein powder, if you're eating mostly whole foods, you really don't need protein powder. But when you're traveling, you're an athlete, it's hard to sit down and stomach, a lot of meals.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I want to get, when we move from vitamins, I want to get into those other types of supplements. What about supplementing vitamin C?
It's nonsense. I would not recommend that. High dose vitamin C also takes away from the natural physiological response of adaptation. So like post-workout, you should not be doing a vitamin C because you want the body to naturally rebuild and repair and adapt to that stress and training. So I've read in studies that people have done high dose vitamin C and vitamin D supplements post-workout to reduce muscle soreness. But again, that takes away from that normal physiological response for the body to respond to that training and stress properly.
Dang it, Wendi. That's the only vitamin I take.
Don't take that.
Is vitamin C.
Why are you taking that? You eat bell peppers. There's a ton of vitamin C in bell peppers.
I don't know, man, because for my whole life, you hear like vitamin C is what keeps your immune system good. And if you don't want to get sick, like
Lies.
You need to take... What the crap, man?
Well, that's good.
One vitamin that I shouldn't be wasting my money on is the one that I'm taking.
You eat, again, going through what you've told me, you eat berries and vitamin C is so rich in bell peppers. What are you doing, man?
I'm just...
Donate it to somebody who doesn't have access to a garden.
Yeah, I guess.
I would discontinue taking that because... it's not going to harm you, but the high dose vitamin C, it's expensive urine, as I tell people. And it takes away from that normal physiological response.
Yeah. And when like the vitamins that we buy, it's the same with our food. Like I think price is a measure. It has to be. Yes. Like price is a measure. Like we buy the most expensive vitamins that obviously, and we research the brand and make sure they're third party tested, everything that you say. But like we spend... Like my wife on those, vitamins that she takes, she spends a lot of money on those. Like,
I believe you.
She's not just buying whatever she won't buy a bottle of magnesium from off the Walmart shelf. Like she's going to go to the herb shop in town where that's all they sell, or source it offline somewhere from a smaller company. But
Douglas Labs is really good. Nordic Naturals. I think what matters too is, access. If somebody only has access to an Aldi or a Walmart or, a grocery store that has supplements and for whatever reason they can't get a responsible source third-party tested, there are some vitamins and minerals, but I would not waste my money on vitamin C.
All right.
Sorry to break your heart here.
Roger that.
You learned something new. I've learned a ton from you, so.
So I love that you laid that out for us. And I want to move on now to like supplements in terms of the supplements that most of us are exposed to as athletes. And you've already talked about creatine, and you're a huge advocate for that. There's no downside to it. Everybody should be taking it. That's awesome to hear. Is all creatine that you buy, is that because there's obviously tons of supplement companies out there, but there are different types of creatine? The one that my wife likes to use is Crea Pure.
Yes, Crea Pure is great.
Okay.
They were just at the ISSN, the International Society of Sports Nutrition. Love them. Crea Pure is great. Most of those gummies, though, they're making a gummy now, which I don't like the gummies. They have additives in the gummies. There's no guarantee that there's actually creatine monohydrate within that supplement. I think a lot of the processing with the gummies, that's one thing I have against the Crea Pure, is that they're coming out with these gummies. There's not enough data to support that the gummies have the same benefits because they don't contain the same amount of creatine that the powder or the capsule will.
Okay. So when you're looking at creatine, like, is there a difference between the
micronized?
Like the no-name brand that you might buy on the Walmart shelf and the Crea Pure that we get from BPN?
It's and I love Nick Bear. I mean, the BPN, he does a fantastic job, and those are third-party tested, responsibly sourced. I like that company because I've spoken to them like at conferences, and I've met them. I've shaken the hands of their representatives. Very different than going and getting Salt as just a brand at the Walmart. They have all these crazy supplement brands, and it says creatine in it, or Bang, like some of the energy drinks that have creatine in them. There's no guarantee that we actually have, the 5 grams of creatine it says in there. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, there is a difference. Creatine monohydrate is the most widely studied ergogenic aid, and it is the most well-absorbed form. Creatine HCl, people have argued that that's better, but the data doesn't support that. And so micronized creatine monohydrate from a third-party tested supplement company is optimal.
Awesome. Okay. Protein is the other big one. I mean, protein powder has been around since I first stepped foot in a gym at 16 years old. And it's the number one thing that people think they need. And, I guess what I worry about with protein powder is is it doing the same thing that the protein that I get from a steak or that Greek yogurt or whatever, like actual food source protein? Is that protein powder, is it a 1-for-1 comparison?
No.
What's the difference?
As always, context is key. Is it grass-fed? How is the protein sourced? How is it processed? That matters too. Is it collagen is a low quality connective tissue. It's not going to be as high of quality. What's the proprietary blend in that protein powder? So if we use whey protein as an example, I like to flip the label, and I need to see that number one, it's third party tested, but how much leucine is in that? I want to know the amount. It has to have at least 2.5 grams of leucine, right? And so those branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, those need to be in higher amounts. And then every protein powder has a proprietary blend. That could mean Lord knows what, just like natural flavors. We don't know what that is. And so that's why I think having as little ingredients as possible in those whey protein powders. So I like, BPN is really great. Momentos, Clean with a K. They're higher quality and they're sourced better. And again, just with the grass-fed aspect.
Yeah. What is that doing?
Just like with your meat, it's grass-fed versus, corn-fed or.
Okay.
I think a lot of people don't like the grass-fed. I have athletes that are like, it tastes grainy, Miss Wendi. I don't want to.
Yeah. And so, a grass-fed steak tastes different than a grain-fed steak.
Yes, very different. And to answer your question clearly is you should want to eat your whole food sources like beef, eggs, fish, chicken, because there is a guarantee that you're getting those nutrients. Unless you completely denature it, then obviously, right, there's a certain amount of protein you cook out, but the protein powders do not guarantee the same.
Gotcha.
And from the gut health standpoint too.
Mm-hmm.
But whey protein is rapidly absorbed. And so after a workout, obviously you want that quick absorption.
So there is like a use and a benefit to using protein powder?
Yes, there's always, protein powders are secondary to whole foods, but I work with a lot of athletes like in Texas. It's really hot. It's also, they're training multiple times per day. They can't sit down and eat a steak and have chicken and fish at every meal. So that's where they get that, whether it's a protein shake, a core power, they're getting some dairy, right? The milk, it's an actual complete protein. That's an optimal way from an absorption standpoint so that they're not feeling overly full so they can go train again in 2 hours.
Gotcha. Okay. But it's not a 1-for-1 replacement for real protein, like real protein food sources. On the same vein of supplements, what about all of the, for your athletes that you work with, what about all the, the pre-workouts, all this stuff that's like loaded with like niacin, maybe caffeine to I guess optimize their energy while they're working out? Like, is that stuff harmful? Is it needed? Is there a place for it?
We do not get our energy from caffeine or pre-workouts. We get our energy in the form of fats, carbohydrates, protein, and calories. Proper sleep, hydration. I'm very passionate about this because no child should have an energy drink. They shouldn't be having a pre-workout powder. It's dangerous. It's reckless. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 100 milligrams of caffeine. And most of these pre-workouts and energy drinks, Chad, have 3 times the amount, right? 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine. And that's what's causing a lot of the depression, anxiety, heart palpitations. And there's been there's a cheerleader in Texas that died. She had multiple Alanis. And so it's just too much caffeine and they're not drinking enough water. And they do have other artificial ingredients and then just some of the synthetics of it too. They're getting stomach aches. And so then they're not hungry to actually eat meals and then they can't gain weight. And the cycle is just perpetuated day after day. I'm completely against those. I'm not against caffeine because caffeine is an ergogenic aid. If you're getting caffeine, like I like black coffee, or I work with a lot of cyclists too, that if, they're of age, we can do a caffeine pill because then we can control the dose. We can control 200 milligrams and it's a guarantee versus coffee being brewed. There's also no guarantee how many milligrams of caffeine is in it, or some of these monsters, Celsius energy drinks. They're so expensive and people complain they don't have money for food, yet they get a 12-pack of Celsius at Costco. Like, get out of here. What are we doing?
They are expensive, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend those things. And if you are going to use a pre-workout, at least make sure that it's third-party tested because I know kids are going to use it. But like the niacin, I'm not against beta-alanine. A fantastic way also to help with repeat sprints and improve athletic performance. But fundamentals, low-hanging fruit is how much are you sleeping? Are you drinking water? Are you eating 3 to 4 balanced meals? Multiple, snacks before and after training, a second breakfast. Mm-hmm. Those are the areas that are going to move the needle a lot further than a pre-workout.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're really doing is like reframing supplements into their proper place. Like the meaning of the word supplement. Like, this is not meant to be your primary source of energy. This is not meant to be your primary source of protein. This is not meant to be your primary source of any type of fuel, whether it's before, during, or in recovery. It is meant to supplement actual real food and nutrients that come from real food and eating and sleeping right and all that stuff together. Yes,
well said. Supplement the gaps in our nutrition because athletes that train, some of these kids, Chad, are training over 20 hours a week. They're doing all the tournaments and it's kind of, youth sports is on life support, as I've said, because they're not fueling their bodies properly.
Yeah.
And that's where supplements are necessary because if they're expending 3,000 calories a day, they're going to need more protein. They're going to need more iron, vitamin D3. That's where the supplements are meant. That's sports science. That's where they were designed for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any opinions on nicotine?
Interesting you ask. From what context?
Well, I mean, there's the conversation around nicotine that I hear has changed a lot in recent years, and I've heard a lot of things that are actually suggesting that nicotine is beneficial or leaning more toward the healthy side. Because I'm talking about nicotine now as like in the context of a supplement. Like I've heard it helps with potentially like brain stuff and like maybe battling dementia and like all this. But I always thought nicotine was bad for you. But I have been a nicotine user since I was about 13 years old. All right. So I don't get any high off of it. It's just like part of my daily habit and use. But I'm sure you have been much more thoughtful about nicotine than I have.
I would say old habits die hard, but you're a very disciplined man. I believe that you could break that cycle today if you wanted to.
Certainly, yeah.
If you called on the Lord.
Problem is I don't want to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There it is. If you want to, that's between you and the Lord. But I would never recommend nicotine. I believe, just like anything, I look at the risk reward of it. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What are the potential consequences of this? And so when I look at the data, people telling me that it helps with focus and concentration and even weight loss control, and that you say dementia, like other people have brought up other, cognitive declines. And I say, well, what can help with those? More omega-3s, more blueberries, the antioxidants, more avocado. There are salmon. There are foods that have a lower risk and a higher reward than nicotine. And so I'm never going to ask people to utilize nicotine as, any type of strategy, despite what the data says. I'm kind of old-fashioned in that regard. I just don't believe that nicotine is beneficial until I see otherwise in the data. I think that there's a lot of mixed information right now, but until I can see something clearly, I'm going to discourage people from using it. I think that it is a higher risk than, making other lifestyle changes. And if you want more benefits, run a little bit more, go spend some more time in the sunshine. I just think that there are healthier alternatives.
Yeah. So it's essentially just you're trying to shortcut something with nicotine, and there are consequences to that. Like there are other ways to get the result you're trying to get.
Yes. It increases risk of cancer too.
Does it really?
Yes.
Huh. I didn't know that. I thought it just restricted your blood flow a little bit.
But that shutting off blood flow to vital organs.
Well, that's true. That's
tissues,
probably not good.
Yeah, like a healthy tissue that needs to be repaired. If that's how you can get infections, right?
Yeah, and I also have had problems with blood clots in the past.
Circulation.
So
maybe today is the day that you say goodbye to
gosh. Dude, nicotine has been such a tool for me in the course of my life. Like there have been so many it started in the military, I think. Like there have been so many times that I've leaned on nicotine as a tool because maybe I've been awake for 30 hours and I'm sitting in a sniper hide site somewhere, and I have to like be alert enough to, maintain visual on whatever target building we're watching or whatever. And like I can throw a dip of snuff in and like I'm not going to fall asleep. And to be honest with you, it's the same now. Even with my son, like last night, I went to bed last night at 10 o'clock. We woke up at 12. I got him back to sleep. We woke back up at 2, and he needed to be fed. So I knew I was going to be up for a while. So I lean on nicotine as a tool. It's like, I know I'm going to need to be up. I'm going to throw a thing of nicotine in, and it's going to keep me awake,
What would the Bible say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a crutch. It's a true addiction. It really is.
I hear you. Well, you're not in that environment anymore. I think about, my story too, like survival mode, like those old ways of relying on myself. They used to work back then in those circumstances, but now in this new phase, and you're a dad, and you're obviously in a different phase of your life right now, old ways won't open new doors. And so if you're having blood clots, you're having issues of circulation, I would recommend investigating that and what you can do and some different treatment options. Remove that and then increase your blueberry intake, increase your salmon, avocado, creatine.
Certainly. No, it's all making me think. I love to be challenged on these things because
you can do it.
Like when I see the studies on nicotine that are coming out that say, "Oh, this stuff might actually be good for you," like I'm like, yes, because it's giving me an excuse to
confirmation bias.
Continue using my crutch. You know what I mean?
But you can find, just like the eggs, I can find data to support that eggs are beneficial, but I can also find data to support that eggs are harmful.
Eggs will kill you.
Who funded this study? That's a big thing too, is like having a master's in nutrition. I have changed my mind on a lot of things because I'm like, well, who's funding that study? Like Bill Gates, of course he's funding more plant protein. Of course he wants us to eat bugs because he's profiting off of that with his Impossible burgers. And, so that matters too. And so big nicotine
True. I mean, yeah. I mean, these nicotine pouches now are like, that's a huge industry now. There's no telling how many millions of dollars are funneling through these few companies that are making these nicotine pouches.
Yes.
Tobacco has been sufficiently demonized. I think tobacco is pretty much dead, but nicotine is resurfacing through the vapes and
vaping is really dangerous though.
The pouches and all of that stuff. That's becoming a huge industry for sure. And kind of one of the last big questions that I had for you revolve around the conversation around using a crutch. And so I have to imagine that these new weight loss drugs, like pharmaceutical drugs, have been a big part of the conversation within your industry. I have to imagine they have. Because some of these daggone drugs, what do they call them? Like metformin or...
Well, that one lower, that's blood sugar. That's
okay,
insulin.
Never mind then.
Type 2 diabetes. But yeah, the GLP-1s, the glucagon-like peptide ones.
Okay. I've seen this, man. I have seen these cats in my, like, people that I know, that this jugger was 300 pounds 3 months ago. And I see this cat and he's like 155 pounds. He looks like a zombie.
Sorry.
And so I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how, like, I wasn't read into this, that these are these drugs new?
No. You know, they've been around for years, but they really blew up in 2022.
Okay.
So it's been, and actually a few people have presented at the, you know, I talked about the ISSN conference, those doctors, people that are prescribing them, why people look so hollowed out is because they lose fat so quickly and they lose a significant amount of muscle with it as well, which is incredibly dangerous, but it basically blunts your appetite. And so it's so frustrating though, because GLP-1, we can produce that naturally by eating more protein and fiber. That's what pisses me off, if I can say that, because you're using a pharmaceutical and wasting money. And again, I look at risk reward, higher risk of thoracic cancer. We're looking at people that have little muscle mass as it is. Now they're chipping away at their bone density and losing lean mass. I don't think people have really understood the consequences of the quick fix and how detrimental it is. And we know too that people that don't actually change their lifestyle, they regain that weight, and it's even more problematic. And we need to treat the root cause of it, which is unresolved trauma, addiction, just whatever that vice that person has used. Food has been a comfort because they didn't deal with what's actually bothering them, because nobody wants to be fat. No one wants to be obese. People don't want to eat themselves into a stupor. Nobody wants to become 300 pounds by choice. It's because it is a habit that was developed to distract from whatever trauma. It's a coping mechanism, just like nicotine or anything else, or what I use too, the control and the stress and the overexercising, whatever it is. But with the GLP-1s, a lot of people are also inhibiting their ability to absorb vital nutrients, and that's why they look like zombies. They've lost their life. It looks like they are iron deficient.
Oh yeah.
And then some, right?
Yeah, it caught me so off guard. I'd say maybe over the last 2 years, because I didn't know these things existed. And I see old Joe and I'm like, dang, Joe, you was 300 pounds like 3 months ago, dude. You've been getting after it, son. Like, you lost 300 pounds in 2.5 months. How'd you do that?
Oh God.
But they look terrible, man. So it almost seems like these things are killing these people.
I think it's demonic. And I know, again, people are probably going to, if they listen to this, like, how could a health professional say that? I'm not against pharmaceuticals. If you're a type 1 diabetic, you need your insulin to live, right?
Yeah, or if you just had a surgery, like you need something for your pain.
But when there's the lifestyle changes that I've helped kids and adults make without any pharmaceuticals, lifting weights, walking, drinking water, changing your lifestyle, eating more protein, eating in a calorie deficit, most people are like, well, yeah, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. What I will say is that unfortunately, when people do become 300, 400, 500 pounds, what is the biggest problem that you need to fix right now? And obviously, when you've got that amount of weight on you, at that point, the GLP-1 can be a healthy tool, but you also need to go to therapy. You need to meet with a dietitian. You need to be strength training. You need to make the course corrections, because otherwise you'll lose so much lean mass along the way. And I really don't think a lot of people have thought that through. but they've lost weight quickly and they don't actually treat the root cause. And so they're going to go back to those patterns. And it's actually worse for you to lose weight, regain weight, lose weight. That cycle is higher risk for disease than just being consistently obese.
I mean, I guess I know the answer to this, but like, is it not strange that doctors get like essentially zero training on nutrition?
They get 19.6 hours. My sister's married to a trauma surgeon.
Huh.
But that's what dietitians are for, Chad. But not all dietitians are.
Yeah, but people aren't going to the dietitian to lose weight. They're going to the doctor to lose weight. I would say in overwhelming numbers, they're going to the doctor to lose weight, and the doctor knows nothing about nutrition. And it is not, I guess, like I say, I guess I can answer my own question. It's just wild to me, man. But it's not profitable for the doctor to connect this patient with a dietitian or a nutritionist, because then the doctor, it's the profitable thing for the doctor to do is to prescribe one of these medicines.
Yes, they're trained and taught how to administer different therapies, and they're typically in the form of pharmaceuticals. Yeah. And they have, not all doctors, but they're not trained on behavioral change, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy that a lot of us dietitians, it's not just telling people what to eat. It's showing them why they need to make changes and having them walk through the states of change that many doctors, they don't talk about that. They just say, here you go, here's your script. Versus we sit down with the person and ask them questions and help them.
You're walking with them through it.
Yes. Doctors don't have time to do that, and that's not what they were trained to do.
Yeah.
So that's where the dietitian comes in. But a lot of doctors do, I will say, if they are type 2 diabetic, they will be referred to a dietitian, or if it's oncology. But typically, healthcare is designed to profit off of the person.
Yeah.
We all know that.
This type 2 diabetes, this is from being overly fat, right? That's the type 1 is the one you're born with, right?
Yes, where your body doesn't produce insulin naturally. So type 2 diabetes is typically caused by people over-consuming calories, carbohydrates, not being active, and your blood sugar is constantly elevated.
There are a good many people in my family with this.
Really?
Type 2 diabetes, or they're like right on the verge of it. Like the doctors are telling them like, you're right on, pre-diabetic. That's what they call it. Have you seen that condition be reversed through proper diet, nutrition, exercise?
Yes, drinking more water, eating more protein, taking walks naturally lowers your blood sugar. Most people aren't doing those basics though. And then when you're on the pre-diabetic, your A1C, right, is the summary of 3 months of your blood glucose, fasted blood glucose. So you want that to be below 100 milligrams per deciliter. And what my frustration, Chad, is that doctors will see a person that's like 98. Oh, they're perfectly fine. But that's starting to tiptoe up to that out of normal limit, which is pre-diabetic when you look at A1Cs. And so if we could catch it earlier on, like prevention, being more proactive instead of reactive, that would be more helpful. But people are able to reverse their type 2 diabetes by eating more protein, eating less sugar, even fruits, because it does elevate blood glucose levels. And so that's where fiber comes in, water, physical activity. People need to change their lifestyle, but it's absolutely reversible. And man, metformin, some of these, it's expensive, like $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear from you that is not a permanent diagnosis, because all of the people that I know who have been diagnosed with this type 2 diabetes, they're like, oh man, I got diagnosed with this disease, like I'm going to have it the rest of my life. Like it's just something that it's like they got diagnosed with cancer, or like they got diagnosed with some disease that just came out of the blue that they didn't see coming. And it was I'm like, no, you brought this sickness upon yourself over the course of decades of bad choices.
Correct.
And even now, you can choose to reverse it and like heal yourself.
Education. Most people don't know that. I mean, we do, a lot of people that are in the space, but maybe some people also, they don't want to change. That's a lot of work. I like eating my processed foods. Yeah. I don't want to eat more protein. I don't want to give up, eating more carbs. behavioral change.
Okay. Dude, I'm asking you so many questions. I apologize.
That's what I'm here for.
I do want to ask you too about fasting, because it is connected with faith and scripture, and are there health benefits to fasting?
Yes. I did a Daniel fast, and fasting there's many layers to it. So not just, abstaining from food, but fasting from social media, fasting from certain things is really beneficial from a faith side. Like the Lord may call you to fast from social media or going to certain events to spend more time with him, right? So that you can hear clearly what he wants you to do. But from a physiological standpoint, fasting, autophagy, very beneficial. It can also help people reset their blood glucose levels. It can balance things out, bring insulin down. I think a lot of people, though, however, do extremes. In women, from what I've read, the data, anything beyond 16 hours, women were not designed to fast that long, just from a hormonal standpoint. And a lot of women then, once they do start eating again after that fast, they binge eat because blood sugar went like a roller coaster, so they're overly hungry. And so I think that fasting, you need to be smart about it, but it is beneficial. Men, definitely 24-hour fast or even 36 hours.
Wow.
Yes, it can be very, very beneficial from an inflammation standpoint too. And so if you're experiencing a lot of, bloating, your digestion just seems off and you feel cloudy, definitely do some water, do some minerals, do it smart. And when you come off of that fast, the protocol, maybe some bone broth, light foods, do not do anything high fat, high fiber.
Don't do a burrito from Don Poncho's after fasting for 4 days because you were in SEER school.
That sounds like a disaster.
It was terrible.
Please don't. You're funny.
Yeah.
Don't ever.
No, this is good word. People need to know this.
But it's true. So yes, spiritually and then physiologically, right? It can bring down inflammation. You can actually get your C-reactive protein measured, your labs. It can balance out blood glucose levels. It can also help you reset your palate. So the people that struggle to stick with it, to experience the changes, you also have a spiritual hunger for the Lord because you're hungry, right? Yeah. And so you have to rely on him. But I feel like fasting is really beneficial as a Christian, and the Lord doesn't say when you fast, or excuse me, if, it says when. So we need to fast because we need to draw close to the Lord. And I just, again, want to preface with women, just the way that we're designed, cortisol levels, and as females, right, we're designed to carry babies, and we are not designed to fast for 3 to 5 days on end. That's why a lot of women feel really awful coming off of it, and then they sometimes get into a binge eating cycle. And I just think for a lot of people, just because somebody else does something and it works for you, you need to test the waters. I always tell people, if you're going to fast, make sure you're at least incorporating smaller windows when you start out. Don't just start out with a 48-hour fast. Start out by cutting out maybe, dinner or lunch. But I believe most people do really well if they would power up with protein because it sets the tone for the day, your neurotransmitters. So if you're going to fast, I would rather people fast from an afternoon meal or an evening meal, but never. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. All meals matter, but I would say what you start the day off with matters significantly because that's your energy for the day. And so that's where clients I've worked with, if we've done fasting as a protocol, we've either skipped a lunch or skipped a dinner and then eased into a 24-hour and then a 48-hour. Wow. Because they've prepared themselves, also the meals leading up to it. I think a lot of people fast in an inappropriate way. They binge eat a bunch of garbage, tacos, burritos, and they're like, okay, it's a perfect time for me to fast. And you didn't actually give your body proper nutrition to prepare for the fast. Your heart posture wasn't in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and from I think from a mental and spiritual aspect, it's the ultimate way to crucify the flesh.
Ooh, yeah, that's
like
good.
It really is, man. It's hard. It's hard. The longest fast I did was in SEER school. It was about 4 days, and the instructors did that to us on purpose. They took us off, but they had to hold us in a holding pen to make sure none of us were going to die after being beaten on and having this was like no food and very limited water, like just enough water to make you alive. And so while you were in that holding pen, the only thing that they gave you as an option to eat was a burrito from Don Poncho's right there on the Silver Strand on Coronado Island. And so of course you took it. You hadn't eaten in 4 days.
Right.
It's the only thing you had to eat. So you went and ate it, and it just obliterated you. Like you're straight into the little outhouse. Yeah. And it was rough. So with fasting, a lot of people, though, a big conversation now has been the intermittent fasting. So basically integrating it into your daily life. If you're going to intermittent fast, though, you're saying probably don't do that in the morning. Like probably skip an evening meal, and if you want to intermittent fast, take it through the night and then fuel up in the morning.
Yeah, and it fits right into the 16-8, which is, for women, if a woman wants to.
Yep.
But yes, again, I've heard from other people that, nope, I'm going to skip my breakfast. Okay, but I've had clients that say they feel better because they're getting that protein in the morning. They're getting that meal. And again, they have that energy for the day. And then they sleep better at night by having that meal skipped. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything that we should cover that we didn't cover? Think about that. But while you're thinking about that, I do want to show you guys Wendy's book here, Devotions with Wendi. She has put a lot of work into this. I was just thumbing through it while we were on our break, and it is laid out extremely well. And this takes you through the entire year, one for each day. And I think this is pretty awesome. I'm going to give this to my wife when I get home, and she's going to love this podcast. She's going to love you, and she's going to appreciate this in a big way, certainly. But we're going to attach a link in the show notes to this book, and everywhere that you can find Wendi, use her as a resource. If this is something that you're struggling with, if you want to, I don't know if you're taking new clients right now or what, but yeah, so she says she is. So we're going to attach all that in the show notes. But this is awesome, man.
God, it's all God. It's, I have digital resources available. I actually started a nonprofit in Texas. So it's called Devotions with Wendi. The Lord called me to write that book. It took 4 years. And it's 2 scriptures. It's a daily devotional. And we're all about finding solutions to problems. A lot of people struggle with finding that time for the Lord. As terrible as that sounds, we're busy. So that gives you 5-minute moments in the morning to dig into at least 2 scriptures. And there's real stories in there of people that I've encountered through my travels that have struggled, and I've met them. There was a man that lost his wife, and he had to go grocery shopping for the first time in 50 years by himself. And he was crying as he was picking out apples. And then I walked into the Kroger and I'm like, hey, are you okay? He looked distraught.
Wow.
God sent me in there. So it's real life stories, and it's meant to uplift you. It's not meant to replace the Bible. It's scripture. Again, I'm not adding anything to it. It's meant to help the person out there that's struggling to prioritize scripture before screens and create a prayer routine to draw closer to God.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Is there anything that we need to cover that we didn't cover?
I feel like we covered a lot. I'm just really grateful to be here, and I pray that this message blesses everybody that listens. And, nutrition really is your secret weapon. And if you're out there thinking about, well, all the stuff they talked about seems really difficult and challenging, just start small. Start taking walks as a family. Start reading your Bible together. Have more family meals at home. Just take small proactive steps, because it will dramatically improve your life. And let God work in your heart. And if he came back today, we would know where we're going. Yeah. And so thank you so much, Chad, for having me.
Yeah, no, and that's a great reminder to kind of wrap up the conversation. Like a lot of the things that we talked about in terms of options and optimization, like we're talking about it on the highest level because we've been doing this for years. Like it's been, and I'm even still learning. Obviously, I learned a lot of stuff from you today. And don't feel overwhelmed by us talking about, no, you need to buy the best meat. You need to grow your own vegetables. You need to collect your own water. Like understand that it can take years maybe to get to that point, and start small. Like you just said, Wendi, because what's going to drive you to the point that we're at today with our nutrition and our health and the way we prioritize it, and we don't mind spending the majority of our money on it. But what led us there is, I'll speak for myself personally, what led us to this point is the small steps and seeing the benefits and the rewards of those small initial steps, that you just want to keep going with it. Like you want to keep going. You want to take it further. You want to continue to lean more into optimizing this stuff, because you have to learn that the benefits are real. But like you learn that along the course of the journey, right? Amen. So that's a great reminder. I love you, sister. Thank you so much for your testimony today, for sharing your wisdom, for dedicating your life to helping others in a very, very important way. I am extremely thankful. And you guys, go find Wendi. Check out the description here. You can find her, follow her. She produces great content. And shoot her a message and tell her thanks, or maybe share with her the biggest lesson learned from this conversation. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Enough said.